The cold beyond the wall did not bite like the cold of the gift. It did not nip and retreat. It held on as if it had teeth sunk into the bone and meant to keep them there. Jon Snow had learned its temper in the first weeks after he'd ridden out with Qhorin Halfhand. He knew it again now, older and heavier with the weight of command. The black cloak on his shoulders no longer a garment but a sentence. The haunted forest was silent in the way a graveyard was silent. No birdsong, no rustle of little lives. Only the creak of wood stiff with frost and the faint hiss of snow sliding from branches when the wind worried at them. The world looked washed of color. The gray sky pressed low as if it wanted to rest on the treetops. Even the pines seemed to hunch under it. Ghost moved ahead of them without effort, pale as fresh-fallen snow in a place that did not welcome anything clean. His paws made no sound. His breath did not plume the same way as the men's did, and sometimes Jon thought he was less an animal than a thought-given fur. When Ghost stopped, Jon stopped. When Ghost turned his head, Jon's eyes followed. They were only 6 men, and even that felt like too many footprints to leave in a land that watched. Iron Emmett had insisted on coming, grim-faced and stubborn, as if the Lord Commander needed a shadow made of muscle and steel. Edison Tollett came because Ed came where he was ordered and because misery was his oldest friend. 2 other rangers rode the flanks. Othel Yarwick's man with the scarred cheek, and a wiry bowman from the Shadow Tower who had not spoken since they'd passed under the wall's black mouth. Jon had not brought wildlings. He had thought about it. Tormund Giantsbane had plenty who knew the woods. But the thought of dragging free folk this far north, with the Watch's men already uneasy about letting them through the gates, felt like kindling laid too close to flame. He could not afford another quarrel in his own yard. Not when the yard itself was cracking. The ranging had begun with a report. A hunter out of Eastwatch had returned shaking, speaking of a place where the snow would not hold. A hollow in the forest, he'd said, a ravine that breathed warmth like a sleeping beast. The man swore he'd seen steam in the air, steam beyond the wall in the dead of winter. Probably a hot spring, Iron Emmett had said when Jon read the message by candlelight. Probably a cave full of dead bears, Ed had offered. They'll be warm enough until we're inside with them. It had not sounded like the work of the others. The others made cold. They made the air glass. They made skin crack and blood thicken. Warmth was not their trick, which was precisely why Jon could not ignore it. The world beyond the wall was changing, and anything that did not fit the pattern deserved eyes on it. So he had led them out. He had crossed beneath the wall's shadow, past the ancient stones where the Night's Watch began, and into the forest that remembered older wars than any man living. His fingers ached even through his gloves. Longclaw's pommel was cold against his palm when he checked it, the old habit of making sure the sword was there, that he was not walking unarmed in a land that raised the dead. Ghost paused suddenly, body low, head lifted. Jon felt it before he saw it. A thinning in the air, like stepping from a shaded place into sunlight. The cold did not ease so much as it shifted, the way the wind shifted when a door opened somewhere in the dark. "What is it?" Iron Emmett asked, voice muffled in his scarf. Ghost did not growl. He stared. Jon followed the line of the direwolf's gaze. Between the pines, the snow looked different. Not deeper, not drifted. Different the way ice looked different from water. A faint dark seam ran through it, a line that did not belong among roots and rocks. The seam widened as they approached, becoming a shallow cut in the earth, then a gash. The forest gave way as if the land itself had split and not bothered to close. A ravine. The snow along its edges was thinner. Jon crouched and touched the ground with a gloved hand. The soil beneath was not soft. Nothing was soft here, but it was not frozen the way it should have been. He felt dampness. Ed let out a breath that fogged the air. "Well," he said, "if we're lucky, the ground will swallow us and we won't have to go back to Castle Black and listen to Bowen Marsh tell us we're all going to die." "No talking," Jon said, though without heat. He could not spare heat. Ghost descended first, agile as smoke, then looked back as if impatient with Jon's slower human bones. Jon slid down after him, boots scraping. Loose snow cascaded and vanished into the darker throat of the ravine. As they dropped, the sound of the wind changed. Above, it had been a constant low moan. Here, the ravine caught it and turned it into a whispering that seemed almost like words spoken too softly to understand. Jon's breath fogged his eyelashes. He blinked and tasted cold. The ravine walls were ice and stone fused together, layered as if the world had been built in slabs. In places, the ice was clear enough to see old roots frozen inside, black lines like veins. Ghost's paws made damp prints now. Jon stared at them, startled. Damp, as if the snow here had begun to melt. He felt the hair on his arms rise beneath wool. Not from cold, from wrongness. How deep? Iron Emmett asked behind him, boots slipping. Deep enough, Ed said. Deep enough that when we die, it'll be hard work dragging us out. Jon ignored them. Ghost had moved ahead again, nose low, tail straight. The direwolf's body language spoke of scent, of interest. Something alive, perhaps, or something that had been alive. The ravine narrowed, then widened, turning like a wound that refused to heal. And then Jon saw it, what the hunter must have seen. Thin curls of steam rising from a black crack in the wall, so faint he might have mistaken them for breath if he hadn't. Watched them coil and vanish. A cave mouth. The rock around it was dark, wet with meltwater. Drops fell in a steady rhythm, like a slow heartbeat. Jon stepped closer and felt it again. Warmth, slight but real, enough to fog his breath differently, enough to make the skin on his cheeks prickle. Ghost slipped into the darkness without hesitation. Jon hesitated only a heartbeat longer. The wall had been behind him, the watch behind that, and beyond the watch the realm. But a Lord Commander did not get to turn away from shadows. He had been born in them. He drew Longclaw, not because he expected to need it in a warm cave, but because he trusted nothing that did not deserve trust. Stay close, he told the men, and then he followed Ghost into the earth. The cave swallowed sound. The wind's whisper faded behind them as if the world had shut a door. Jon's torch threw a trembling orange light that could not quite decide what to reveal. The ice walls caught it and turned it strange, bending it so the shadows looked like moving shapes trapped behind glass. Meltwater dripped from the ceiling in slow, fat drops, each one a small shock of sound when it struck the stone and broke. Somewhere deeper, water ran, a faint thread of movement in a place built to stand still. Ghost was a pale blur ahead, eyes reflecting torchlight in twin sparks. He moved with his nose low, drawing in the air. The direwolf's ears flicked, attentive, not afraid. That, Jon realized, was what unsettled him most. Ghost feared little, but he was not reckless. When Ghost smelled Wights, he bristled. When he'd smelled the others at the fist of the first men, he'd gone rigid, as if his blood remembered something older than fear. Here, Ghost was curious. The cave floor was uneven, ridged with old ice and stone. Jon moved carefully, boots finding purchase. The warmth was faint but persistent, like a hand held near a low flame. It grew as they went deeper, enough that Jon's breath came easier, enough that the inside of his gloves began to dampen with sweat. He stopped and listened. Beyond the drip and the water's thread, there was a sound, so low he felt it more than heard it. A vibration, as if the rock itself hummed. "Do you hear that?" Iron Emmett asked, voice lowered as if the cave might take offense. Ed's laugh was soft and humorless. "That's the sound of us making a mistake." Jon gestured them forward. He did not trust his own voice in here. The cave felt like a throat, and he did not want to be the thing that made it tighten. The walls bore marks. At first, they were only scratches, shallow grooves in stone. Then Jon saw patterns. Lines cut deliberately, a cluster of slashes like a crude sunburst, another like a hand with too many fingers. Runes, perhaps, the way the first men carved into weirwood bark and stone. But these were rougher, older, or made by someone with a different idea of writing. Ghost paused before a bend, hackles lifting. Not in fear, Jon saw, but in something like possessiveness. His lips pulled back from his teeth. Jon rounded the bend and the torchlight stumbled. The chamber beyond was wider, the ceiling higher. The ice here was black, not from shadow but from its own depth, as if it had swallowed centuries of darkness and kept it. In the center of the chamber, the ice rose in a hump, like a burial mound. Meltwater ran down its sides in thin streams, and steam curled from cracks like breath. And there, half embedded in the black ice, was a stone. No, not a stone, an egg. It was as large as Jon's head and broader, heavy-looking even in the way it sat, as if the ice had had to work to hold it. Its surface was smooth but not polished, a pale gray that caught the torchlight and returned it dull, like moonlight on old bone. Dark veins ran through it, branching in patterns that reminded Jon of frost on a windowpane. Except these veins were not white. They were the color of soot. Jon took a step closer and felt the warmth more clearly. It rolled off the egg in faint waves, enough to melt the ice immediately around it, enough to make the air above it shimmer. He stared, and for a moment his mind refused the shape. Dragon eggs were stories, not things you found in a cave beyond the wall. Dragons were in songs, in old Valyrian ruin tales, in the whispered name of a queen across the sea who had walked into flame and come out with monsters on her shoulders. Dragons were fire, and fire had no place in a land of ice. Edison Tollett said it first because Ed always said the worst thought out loud so the rest of them did not have to carry it alone. "That's a dragon egg." Iron Emmet's spear tip-dipped. "No," he said. "It can't be." Jon crouched beside the mound, careful. The ice under his knee was wet. He reached out, then stopped short. The egg looked inert, but the hum, he felt it stronger now. A vibration that rose through his fingers even before he touched. He placed his gloved hand on the shell. Warmth seeped through leather and wool. Not the warmth of sun on stone, but the warmth of something alive. Beneath it, the vibration pulsed, slow and steady, like a heartbeat. Jon's throat tightened. He thought of the wall, of the cold, of the dead things that moved. He thought of the way fire worked against them. He thought of the way the Watch had stood for thousands of years with nothing but steel and stubbornness and a frozen fortification. He thought of Mormont's raven-shouting king and meaning nothing, meaning everything. He thought, too, of oath. "I swore," he whispered, though he did not know to whom.
"I sura no crowns, no lands no."
No dragons, his mind finished, but the words had never been spoken. The vows had not anticipated a dragon egg lying in ice like a seed waiting for the world to thaw. Ghost growled again, and Jon felt a sharp edge to it now. Possessive, yes, but also warning. "What do we do?" asked the bowman, voice tight. "Leave it," part of Jon wanted to say. "Seal the cave, mark it, tell no one. Let the cold swallow it again and pretend they had never seen." But leaving it felt like abandoning a weapon. Or worse, abandoning a temptation for someone else to find. Wildlings, thieves, men who would sell it to the highest lord. Men who would bring it south and turn it into war. Or the others. A dragon egg was fire trapped in stone. Jon did not know if the dead would want it, but he knew the dead wanted anything that gave the living hope. He looked at the scratches on the wall, the runes, the scratches. Someone had come here before. Someone had put the egg in ice on purpose, perhaps. To hide it, to preserve it, to keep it from fire, or to keep it from cold, or to keep it from the world. Jon set his hand flat on the shell again, and felt the slow pulse answer him, as if the thing inside recognized touch. He rose. Longclaw's wolf pommel gleamed in torchlight. "We take it," he said, and heard how strange his own certainty sounded. "We take it back to the wall." Iron Emmet stared. Ed's mouth twisted. "We'll have to name it," Ed said. "Something cheerful, like doom." Jon ignored him. He knelt again, bracing himself, and slid both hands under the egg where the ice had melted enough to give. It was heavier than he expected, as if the shell held not only a creature but the memory of mountains. His arms strained. For a heartbeat, the egg did not move, stuck fast in black ice like a secret that did not want to be lifted. Then the hum deepened, and the ice around it softened further. Jon felt it shift. He lifted, muscles burning, and drew it free with a wet sucking sound. The egg was slick with meltwater, Steam curled from it in thin tendrils. Jon cradled it against his chest, and heat soaked into his furs. A thought came unbidden, sharp as a knife. It feels like holding a coal. Ghost stepped close and pressed his nose to the shell, inhaled, then sneezed and shook his head as if angry at the scent. His ears went back. He did not retreat, but he watched Jon with something like suspicion now, as if Jon had brought an unfamiliar beast into their pack. "Wrap it," Jon ordered, voice rough. "In furs. Keep it from breaking." Iron Emmett moved like a man in a dream, stripping off an extra cloak, hands clumsy with cold and disbelief. Together they swaddled the egg, layers of wool and fur around stone warmth. Jon tightened the bundle with straps until it held. When he stood, the weight pulled at his shoulders. It was not only the egg. It was what it meant. Fire. Va. Kings. Stories that ended in ash. He looked once more at the cave, at the runes, at the black ice mound now empty and steaming as if wounded. Then he turned his back on it and began the long climb out, carrying a piece of impossible warmth against his heart. Climbing out of the ravine felt like climbing out of a dream. The warmth faded with each step upward, not because the egg cooled, but because the air above was a cruel reminder of what the world was meant to be here. Cold reclaimed Jon's lungs. Frost returned to his brows. The steam that had curled from the egg became faint, then vanished under the layers of fur and cloak. But the weight remained. It pulled at him as if it wanted him to remember it with every breath. He shifted the straps across his shoulders, trying to balance the bundle so it would not slam against rock. The egg did not feel fragile, and yet he treated it like glass. A strange thing to be careful with a weapon you did not understand. The wind met them at the top like a slap. Snow fell in sheets, the sky thickening toward storm. The pines swayed, shedding powder that burst around them like breath. The world beyond the ravine looked the same as it had before. Endless trees, endless white, endless gray. Yet Jon could not see it as the same. He had stepped into a cave and come out carrying fire. How could the forest not know? How could the sky not change color? Ghost ranged ahead again, but he stayed closer now, circling back often to glance at Jon. Once he bumped his shoulder against Jon's leg, hard enough to jolt, then went on. A warning or a claim. Iron Emmett walked at Jon's right, eyes flicking between the trees. The bowman kept his arrow nocked. Ed trudged behind, muttering to himself. Jon caught snatches. If it hatches, I hope it eats Bowen Marsh first. And warm cave, warm death. They made good time at first, following their own tracks where the snow had not erased them. Jon kept his eyes on the dark spaces between trunks. The haunted forest was always full of watching, whether or not anything watched. It was Ghost who found the first sign. He stopped so abruptly Jon nearly collided with him. The direwolf's body went rigid. His lips pulled back, and a low growl rolled out, deep enough to vibrate Jon's bones. Jon raised a fist. The men halted. "What?" Iron Emmett breathed. Ghost did not look at Jon. He stared into the trees. Jon saw nothing for a moment. Snow drifted, a curtain. Then a shape shifted, not quite like a man, but too tall and too still to be a stump. Another shape beside it. Another. White faces, half hidden by branches. Eyes like pale coins catching what little light there was. Wights. They stood among the pines at the edge of vision, as if the forest had grown corpses. Their mouths hung open. Their skin was gray-blue where it showed, stiff with cold. They did not rush. They watched. Jon's stomach tightened. The dead did not watch like that unless something told them to. The Wights were hands. The others were the mind behind them. And the others, Jon thought, would know. He felt the egg's warmth through furs, a steady pulse against his chest. Had it called to them? Had it been calling all this time, trapped in ice, a beacon? Or was it simply that they had followed the men, as they sometimes did, curious and patient, waiting for an opening? A gust of wind pushed Snow sideways, clearing Jon's sight for a heartbeat. In that heartbeat he saw movement deeper in the trees, a pale shimmer like light on frozen water. Not a white, something else, slender, too graceful. His breath caught. The shimmer was gone. The snow closed again. "Back," Jon said softly. "Slow. Don't run." It made a sound that might have been a laugh if it hadn't been strangled by fear. "I wasn't planning to," he said. "Running only makes it more embarrassing when you fall and they eat you." The Wights stepped forward in unison, slow as puppets. Snow did not cling to them the way it clung to living men. They moved without shivering. Jon's fingers tightened around Longclaw's hilt. Valyrian steel was dark as smoke, rippled, hungry for light. He remembered the way it had cut through a Wight at Castle Black, the way dragonglass shattered the dead. Fire and obsidian and certain old magics, those were the weapons. Steel alone was not enough. And now, strapped beneath his cloak, he carried something that might be the oldest fire of all. "Keep the line," Jon said. "Spears out. If they rush, aim for the head." They retreated one step at a time, boots sinking, breath steaming. The Wights matched them, always the same distance, always patient. Jon's heart hammered. He forced himself to breathe slow. Fear made mistakes. The forest tightened around them, trunks close, branches clawing at cloaks. Snow thickened. Visibility shrank to a few yards. The Wights became pale suggestions, then vanished entirely behind curtains of white. For a moment Jon thought they had lost them. He listened hard. Only wind and falling snow. Then a corpse burst out of the white at his left, moving faster than it should have. Its mouth opened in a silent snarl, teeth black, eyes like milk. Jon swung Longclaw on instinct. Valyrian steel bit through frozen flesh and bone. The Wight's head flew, hit snow, rolled. The body took 2 more steps, arms reaching, then collapsed. Another Wight lunged at Iron Emmett. Emmett drove his spear into its chest. The corpse kept coming, sliding down the shaft, hands grabbing. Emmett grunted and shoved, but it was like wrestling a dead tree. Jon stepped in and hacked at its neck. It fought one with a torch, shoving flame into its face. The Wight recoiled, and the torch's fire hissed in the snow, diminished but not dead. It kicked its knee backward, toppled it, then drove his dagger into its eye as if he'd practiced on nightmares. More shapes emerged. 5, 6, 10. The dead had been watching, but they were done watching now. Jon felt the egg's heat surge suddenly, or perhaps it was his own blood surging in response. The bundle pressed against his ribs. A faint vibration thrummed through the straps. For a wild heartbeat, he imagined the creature inside shifting, sensing danger, wanting out. "No, Jon, though." T fiercely, not sure if he spoke or only imagined it. "Not here. Not now." A Wight grabbed for his cloak. His fingers were like ice. Jon wrenched free, slashed, and the corpse's arm fell off at the elbow, landing in the snow with a dull thud. It kept coming anyway, driven by whatever cold will pulled its strings. Iron Emmett shouted, voice raw. The bowman loosed arrows, shafts vanishing into pale torsos. The dead did not bleed. They did not slow. "Fall back," Jon barked. They backed toward a stand of pines where the ground rose slightly, giving them a better footing. Snow clung to their boots, dragging. The Wights did not stumble. Jon's breath burned his throat. His arms ached from swinging. He struck again and again, cutting heads, hacking limbs, breaking bodies, knowing it was never enough unless they stopped moving entirely. A Wight lunged at him with surprising speed. Jon parried, but his foot slipped on packed snow. He went down hard, the egg's weight slamming against his chest. Pain flashed. The Wight's hands closed around his throat. Cold, absolute, pressed into his skin. His fingers clawed at the corpse's wrists, but its grip was iron. Its face hovered inches from his, mouth open, breath like the void. Its eyes were dead milk, reflecting nothing. Jon's vision narrowed. Stars sparked at the edges, and then Ghost was there. The dire wolf hit the Wight with a sound like a battering ram, jaws closing on its shoulder. Ghost tore, shaking, and the corpse's grip loosened. Jon sucked in air, ragged. He rolled, grabbed Longclaw, and drove it up into the Wight's jaw, through skull, out the top. The corpse went limp. Jon staggered up, throat burning, fingers numb. Ghost stood beside him, teeth bared, blood staining his white fur dark. The Wights paused, just for a heartbeat, as if reassessing. Jon looked past them into the white haze between trees. He saw nothing, but he felt something, an attention, cold and amused. He tightened the straps across his shoulders and forced himself to stand taller. "We move," he said. "Now." They broke into a hard, controlled run, not fleeing blindly but pushing through the forest with the discipline of men who knew that panic was death. Behind them, the dead pursued, silent as snowfall. Jon did not look back again. He did not want to see whether pale eyes watched from deeper shadows. He only knew one thing with a certainty that tasted like iron. Whatever he had taken from the ice, the world beyond the wall had noticed. Castle Black looked smaller after the forest. Not weaker, never that, but fragile in a way Jon had not allowed himself to see before. The wall loomed above it, immense and indifferent, ice piled into a barrier that had stood longer than kingdoms. Men moved like ants at its base, black specks against white, torches burning stubbornly in the wind. When the gate swallowed them and the wall's cold shadow enclosed them, Jon felt the strain in his shoulders ease for the first time since the ravine. Safety, such as it was. The dead did not cross the wall easily. The ancient spells woven into the ice still held, or so the Maester said. Jon had seen enough to know that nothing held forever. He did not go straight to the hall. He did not eat. He did not let Bowen Marsh corner him with questions about ranging reports, or Othel Yarwick demand to know how many men he had risked. He went to his solar with the egg strapped beneath his cloak, Ghost close at heel, and shut the door. The room smelled of ink and old smoke. The fire in the hearth had burned low. Jon had been gone 3 days, and no servant warmed a Lord Commander's room unless ordered. He crossed to the hearth and added wood, coaxing flame until it licked higher. The warmth from the fire was crude compared to the egg's steady heat, but it comforted him in a familiar way.
Men understood fire.
Men built their lives around it. Dragons were something else. He unstrapped the bundle slowly, as if it might wake if jostled. When he peeled back layers of fur, the egg emerged into candlelight, pale and veined, glistening with faint moisture. Steam curled from it in the cooler air of the room. Jon stared. In the cave it had felt like a treasure of war. Here, in his own chamber with the wall behind him and the watchful eyes of his brothers outside, it looked like a crime. He set it on the table. The wood beneath darkened slightly with dampness, but the egg did not leak. It simply warmed the world around it, an island of impossible heat. Ghost sat by the door, ears forward, eyes fixed on the egg. He did not growl now. He watched as he watched strangers. Jon's hands shook. He clenched them into fists until his knuckles whitened. He had made decisions in battle with calmer blood than this. This was not battle. This was a choice that might become history. A soft knock came. Jon froze. Then he exhaled, forced his voice steady. "Enter." Samwell Tarly slipped inside, closing the door behind him. Sam's cheeks were red from cold, his hair damp with sweat under his hood. He looked worried, the way he always looked when the world demanded bravery from him. "I heard you were back," Sam said, then stopped as his eyes found the table. His mouth fell open. For a moment he made no sound at all, as if his voice had fled. Jon watched him, measuring. Sam was loyal. Sam was terrified of everything. Sam also had the kind of mind that could hold 1,000 facts and spit them out when needed, and right now Jon needed facts more than he needed comfort. "Close your mouth," Jon said, "and keep your voice down." Sam shut his mouth with an audible click, then whispered, Is that what I think it is?" Jon did not answer. The egg's presence answered for him. Sam took a step closer, then another, drawn like a moth. He held his hands out as if to touch, then pulled them back. "It's warm." "Yes." "Where?" Sam swallowed. "Where did you find it?" "Beyond the wall. In a cave." Sam's eyes went huge. But, Lord Commander, dragon eggs are... He fumbled for words like a man dropping plates. They're not supposed to be there. They're not supposed to be anywhere. They're all... He stopped, remembering himself.
I'm sorry.
I'm just... It can't be real. It is, Jon said. His voice came out colder than he intended, as if he feared warmth might make the thing hatch. Sam stared at the egg, then at Jon, then back again. What are you going to do? Jon did not know. That was the truth that hollowed him. He had killed men. He had given orders that sent brothers to their deaths. He had let wildlings through the wall and watched the hatred in the eyes of his own. Those choices had been made within the lines of duty. This was outside the lines, like stepping off a cliff and trusting the air to hold. Before Jon could answer, there was another knock. Lighter, slower. Jon's pulse spiked. Who is it? A thin voice answered from the other side. It is only me, Jon. Maester Aemon. Jon's eyes met Sam's. Sam looked as if he might faint. Jon moved quickly, crossing to the door and opening it only a crack. Maester Aemon stood with his cane, wrapped in layers, blind white eyes turned toward the warmth seeping through the gap. His lined face was calm in the way old men got when they had outlived surprise. I felt it, Aemon said softly. In the air. Jon hesitated, then opened the door wider. Aemon stepped inside with careful dignity, cane tapping. Sam rushed forward to guide him to the chair by the hearth. Aemon did not sit. He stood, chin lifted, and turned his face toward the table. So, Aemon murmured, so the world turns, and old tales return. Jon's throat tightened. You know what it is.
Aemon smiled faintly. Asadkurv.
I know what it should be, he said, and I know what it means if it is. Sam whispered, Maester, it's warm. It's real. Aemon's fingers tightened on his cane. Bring me closer. Sam guided him step by slow step until Aemon stood before the table. He did not touch the egg at first. His blind eyes seemed to look past it, as if he were seeing something else. Sunlight on stone, perhaps, and the color of a world he had never known. My brother dreamed of dragons, Aemon said, voice barely more than breath. We all did once. In those days, the name Targaryen was not a whisper. It was a shout. Jon felt the word like a stone dropped into deep water. Targaryen. The thought of it stirred something restless in his BL. A heat he had never understood. Aemon extended one trembling hand. His fingers hovered above the shell, then rested gently on it. The egg's warmth seemed to rise to meet him. Aemon inhaled sharply. For a heartbeat his face looked younger, not in skin but in spirit, as if some old longing had reached up from his bones. It lives, Aemon whispered. Sam made a strangled sound. Jon's stomach dropped as if the floor had vanished. It can't, he said, though he knew it already. It shouldn't. Aemon's hand remained on the shell. Should and shouldn't are words for summers, he said. Winter cares little for them. Jon stared at the egg, at the dark veins. How can it be beyond the wall? Aemon shook his head slowly. I do not know, he admitted. But I know this. If it hatched once, it can hatch again. Sam swallowed hard. If it hatches, he whispered. What then? Aemon's face turned toward Jon. Then men will come, he said, for it, with crowns in their eyes. And the dead may come too, if they sense what it is. Jon's mouth went dry. He thought of pale eyes in the forest, watching. He thought of the way the Wights had followed. He thought of the shimmer in the storm, too graceful to be dead. Aemon's voice softened. You are afraid. Jon did not deny it. I'm Lord Commander, he said, as if that should explain everything.
I'm sworn.
The Watch. The Watch was sworn to guard the realms of men, Aemon interrupted gently. Not to guard them from strange gifts, not to guard them from hope. He drew his hand back from the egg, fingers trembling. But hope is a sword with no hilt. You will cut yourself if you grasp it wrong. Sam took a shaky breath. Should we tell? Should we tell anyone? Jon's mind flashed to Bowen Marsh's thin-lipped disapproval, to Othel Yarwick's rigid rule, to Septon Celador's drunken sermons, to the Wildlings in their crowded pens, to Queen Celis's cold eyes, to Melisandre's red gaze that saw too much. No, Jon said. The word came out harder than he expected. Not yet. Aemon nodded, as if he had expected that answer. Secrecy buys time, he said. But time is also what hatches eggs. Sam let out a breath that sounded like a sob. Where will you keep it? Jon looked around his small solar, at the thin walls, the door that could be opened by any man with a key, the hearth that smoked. He imagined the egg cracking on this table while Bowen Marsh marched in with a committee of stewards to accuse him of treason. He thought of the wormways, the old tunnels inside the wall that few used anymore, cold and dark and hidden. He looked at Ghost, who watched the egg without blinking. I'll move it, Jon said. Tonight. Aemon reached out and touched Jon's sleeve with surprising strength for such frail fingers. Jon, he said quietly, and there was something in the way he spoke Jon's name that carried weight, as if he were naming more than a boy in black. Do not let it make you a king. Jon's jaw clenched. I don't want a crown. Aemon's smile was faint and weary. No, he said, and that is why crowns look for you. Outside, the wind moaned against the wall. Jon looked at the egg again, steam curling from its shell like breath, and wondered if he had just brought a new war into his house. Jon did not sleep. He sat with the egg between himself and the hearth as if it were a third presence in the room, not an object but a guest that had arrived unannounced and would not leave. When Sam returned with books, heavy tomes that smelled of dust and mouse droppings, Jon's patience frayed. Not at Sam, at the world, at the way the world kept placing impossible things into his hands and expecting him to carry them without dropping. Sam laid the books on the table beside the egg with careful reverence, like offerings. These are from the library, he whispered, as if the walls might hear. Maester Aemon let me take them. He said there were records, old ones. Jon nodded. He had not asked Aemon for permission. He had simply assumed the old man's mind would turn toward knowledge the way a dying plant turned toward sun. Sam flipped through pages with trembling fingers. Illustrations of dragons stared up. Scaled monsters with wings spread wide, fire spilling from their mouths in painted arcs. Jon had seen such drawings before, in children's tales and in the hands of men who wanted to believe in glory. Seeing them beside the egg made them feel less like tales and more like warnings. Dragon eggs are stone, Sam said softly, reading from a passage. They become as hard as rock when they go dormant. The Maesters say the last ones were long dead after the dance of the dragons when the dragons. He swallowed and glanced at Jon. But Daenerys Targaryen. Jon's eyes narrowed. You've heard more than the Watch usually hears.
Sam flushed.
Sailors talk when they come through Eastwatch. And there was a letter once from Old Town, a Maester's report about 3 dragons. Jon stared at the egg. Daenerys Targaryen, a queen with dragons. A fire made flesh across the sea. Jon had thought of her only as a rumor, something happening far away while his own war was here, cold and close. Now he held an egg as if the rumor had reached out and touched him. How did hers hatch? Jon asked. Sam licked his lips. The stories say, they say she walked into fire, on a funeral pyre, with... He hesitated, as if the words might summon something. With blood, with death, with magic. Jon's gaze went to the hearth. The fire popped, sending sparks up the chimney. The egg sat dull and pale, but its warmth was steady, patient. No, Jon said. We're not burning anything. Sam's shoulders sagged with relief. Aemon sat near the hearth, hands clasped over his cane, listening. His blind eyes were turned toward the table as if he could see the egg by heat alone. You will not need a pyre, Aemon said softly. Not if it is already waking. Jon looked sharply at him. You think it is? Aemon's lips moved in a faint smile. It breathes warmth into the air, he said. I have lived long enough to know when the world changes its mind. Jon stared at the egg again. He had not imagined it. Then the hum, the pulse. It was not only warmth. It was life. Sam continued reading, voice low and hurried, as if he could outpace fear with words. He found passages about Valyria, about dragon lords and bloodlines. He found a line about eggs placed in cradles with babes of the royal line. He found another about eggs that would not hatch unless the right hand touched them. Jon's fingers twitched. He kept them clenched. Outside, the wall groaned. The sound was deep and slow, like an old beast shifting in sleep. Jon felt it in his teeth. He remembered the way the ice had softened around the egg in the cave, melting as if frightened of what it held. His mind reached for the wormways again. Cold and dark, hidden. If the egg needed heat, would cold slow it? Would cold kill it? Jon could not bear the thought of killing it after lifting it from ice like a newborn. And yet, if it hatched here, in this room, it would not remain secret for a heartbeat. A knock came again, sharp this time. Jon's hand went to Longclaw. Who? Lord Commander. Bowen Marsh's voice. Polite, clipped. A word. Jon's gut tightened. He looked at Sam. Sam's face went pale as milk. Aemon's fingers tapped his cane once. Do not open, he murmured. Jon stood slowly, placing himself between the door and the table. Ghost rose too, silent, a pale shadow with teeth. Jon took 2 steps to the door and opened it only a crack, keeping his body as a shield. Bowen Marsh stood outside, lamplight catching the frost on his lashes. Behind him were 2 stewards, faces blank. Bowen's eyes flicked past Jon into the room, searching. I thought you would be in the hall, Bowen said. The men wanted to hear your report. I'll speak tomorrow, Jon said. Bowen's mouth tightened. Tomorrow is always convenient, he said softly. When today is difficult. Jon kept his voice even. We ranged. We saw signs of the dead. We killed Wights. We returned. Bowen's gaze lingered on Jon's shoulder, where a strap crossed beneath his cloak. You brought something back, he said. Jon's heart thudded. A report, he said. In my head. Bowen's nostrils flared, as if he smelled something. The air is warm, he said, and there was suspicion in the way he spoke the word warm, as if warmth itself were treason. You've got the hearth blazing like a lord in Winterfell. Jon forced a thin smile. I was cold. Bowen's eyes narrowed. We are all cold, he said. That is our lot. For a heartbeat, Jon thought Bowen might push past him. Instead, Bowen stepped back, hands folded, the picture of duty. Very well, he said. Rest then, but we will speak soon. We will, Jon said, and closed the door. When the latch clicked, Jon exhaled slowly. His fingers shook. Sam whispered. He knows. He suspects, Jon said. He suspects everything. He suspects my shadow of plotting against him. Aemon's voice was quiet. Secrecy is a thin cloak, he said, and Bowen Marsh has sharp eyes. Jon looked at the egg. Steam curled faintly again, more than before, as if the shell were sweating. The room felt warmer now, not only from the hearth. He moved to the table and laid his hand on the egg. The warmth greeted him. Beneath it, the hum pulsed, steady as a heart. For a moment, under his palm, he thought he felt something shift.
Sames Brett hitched.
Did it? Jon did not answer. He could not trust his voice. He thought of the ravine, of Wights watching, of pale shimmer between trees. He thought of Bowen's eyes searching. He thought of Melisandre, whose gaze always seemed to find truths no one spoke. I'm moving it, Jon said again, more firmly. Now.
Sam swallowed.
Where? Jon looked at the wall, though it was stone and ice and could not be seen through the room's narrow slit. Inside, he said, where the wall keeps its old bones. Aemon's face turned toward him. The wormways, he said, not a question. Jon nodded. Sam's hands clenched around the book he held. It'll be cold, he whispered. Jon's jaw tightened. It lived in ice, he said. It can live there again. But even as he spoke, he knew the truth. The egg had not been cold in the cave. It had been warm. It had been melting its own prison. The thing inside did not want to sleep anymore. They waited until the yard quieted and the last of the torches in the common hall burned low. Castle Black never truly slept. There were always men on watch, always the distant clang of a gate chain, always the wind worrying at wood. But there were hours when the world seemed to hold its breath. Jon chose one of those hours. He did not bring Iron Emmett. He did not bring Ed. Men meant questions. Men meant witnesses. Sam was witness enough, and Aemon's silence could be trusted. Ghost came because Ghost did not ask permission. Jon wrapped the egg again in furs until its shape vanished. Just another bundle someone might carry. Provisions, perhaps, or a corpse. He strapped it tight across his chest beneath his cloak, feeling the warmth press against his ribs. Even through layers, he could not forget it was there. It was like carrying a secret brand. Sam held a lantern, his hands trembling so the light wobbled. "Are you sure?" he whispered for the 5th time. "No," Jon whispered back, "but I'm doing it anyway." They slipped through a side door and into a stairwell that led toward the wall's interior passages. The air grew colder as they went. Not the open cold of the yard, but a deep chill that seeped into skin. The stone steps were slick with frost. Jon's breath turned to fog. A narrow door opened onto the wormways. Jon had walked them before, years ago, when he'd been a new brother and the wall still felt like an adventure instead of a responsibility. The wormways were a maze of tunnels carved into the ice, reinforced in places with stone, cramped and twisting. Some were used still, connecting lifts and storage rooms. Others were old, sealed, or half-collapsed, relics of times when Castle Black had been full of men and the wall had been crowded with life. Here, in the belly of the wall, sound changed. It became muffled, absorbed by ice. Their footsteps were dull thumps. The lantern light bounced off blue-white walls, making their shadows stretch strangely, tall and thin as Wights. Ghost moved ahead, nose low, ears flicking. The direwolf's paws made almost no sound on the ice, but his presence filled the tunnel the way a storm filled the sky. Sam's lantern threw light on old ice that had trapped air bubbles like frozen breath. Jon's hand brushed the wall once and came away numb. The cold here was ancient, felt like the wall's memory. They took turns that men did not use anymore, passages narrower, lower. Jon had chosen a place near an old sealed stairwell where the tunnel widened into a small chamber once used for storage. It was empty now, except for broken crates and dust that never melted. When they reached it, Jon unstrapped the egg and set it carefully on the ice floor. The chamber felt colder than the tunnel, as if the wall had been holding this pocket of cold in reserve. The lantern light looked wrong here, swallowed quickly by blue shadow. Steam rose from the fur bundle where it touched ice. Sam stared, eyes wide. "It's melting it," he whispered. Jon crouched and pulled back the top layer of fur. The egg gleamed faintly, moisture beading on its shell. The dark veins looked darker in the lantern light, like cracks filled with soot. Jon touched it and felt warmth surge into his fingertips. It seemed warmer than before, as if the cold of the tunnel only made its heat more noticeable. "Don't," Sam whispered. What if it needs warmth? What if we're killing it?" Jon's throat tightened. He had thought the same. He had tried not to. "I'm not," Jon said, though he could not be sure. "It lived beyond the wall. It didn't live cold," Sam whispered, voice shaking. "It lived warm in a cave, like it was being kept safe." Jon's mind flashed to the runes, the scratches on stone. Someone had put it there. Someone had wanted it preserved. Not frozen dead. Preserved. A sound came then, faint but unmistakable. A crack. Sam's lantern shook so hard the light leapt. "Did you hear that?" Jon's blood turned to ice and fire at once. He leaned closer, breath held. Another crack, sharper, came from the egg. Jon's hands hovered, unsure whether to touch or pull back. The shell looked unchanged, smooth and whole, but the sound had been real. Another crack sounded, and this time Jon saw it. A thin line appearing on the shell, hair-fine, running along one of the dark veins as if the vein itself had split open. Steam thickened. The air in the chamber warmed noticeably, enough that Jon's breath came softer. The lantern flame steadied, as if pleased. Sam backed up a step, nearly slipping. Oh gods! Jon's mind raced. If it hatched now, in this chamber, they had no plan. No food.
No caje.
No way to hide a living dragon in Castle Black without the entire watch seeing. They could not even hide a drunken steward without gossip spreading. He reached for the egg, intending to wrap it tighter, to move it deeper to he did not know. The egg shuddered under his hands. Jon froze. The shudder was small, but it was the movement of something alive pushing from within. The shell was not stone anymore. It was a skin holding back a creature that wanted out. Sam's breath came in quick, panicked bursts. What do we do? What do we do? Jon forced himself to think like a commander. Commanders did not panic. They did not stare at miracles and weep. They acted. We stay quiet, Jon said, though his voice shook. We. The egg cracked again, louder. A piece of shell lifted slightly, not falling away but pushed from within like a door opening. A smell filled the chamber. Not smoke, not sulfur, but something sharp and clean, like hot stone after rain. Ghost growled low, a sound that filled the small chamber. His hackles rose. He circled the egg, nose twitching, then stopped and stared at Jon as if accusing him of bringing a new predator into their den. Jon, Sam whispered. It's hatching. Jon's mouth went dry. Not here, he whispered, though he did not know where else. A third crack sounded, and this time Jon saw it. A thin line appearing on the shell, hair-fine, running along one of the dark veins as if the vein itself had split open. Steam thickened. The air in the chamber warmed noticeably, enough that Jon's breath came softer. The lantern flame steadied, as if pleased. Sam backed up a step, nearly slipping. Oh gods! Jon's mind raced. If it hatched now, in this chamber, they had no plan. No food.
No caje.
No way to hide a living dragon in Castle Black without the entire watch seeing. They could not even hide a drunken steward without gossip spreading. He reached for the egg, intending to wrap it tighter, to move it deeper to he did not know. The egg shuddered under his hands. Jon froze. The shudder was small, but it was the movement of something alive pushing from within. The shell was not stone anymore. It was a skin holding back a creature that wanted out. Sam's breath came in quick, panicked bursts. What do we do? What do we do? Jon forced himself to think like a commander. Commanders did not panic. They did not stare at miracles and weep. They acted. We stay quiet, Jon said, though his voice shook. We. The egg cracked again, louder. A piece of shell lifted slightly, not falling away but pushed from within like a door opening. A smell filled the chamber. Not smoke, not sulfur, but something sharp and clean, like hot stone after rain. Ghost snarled, then, unexpectedly, sat. His ears flattened. His eyes never left the egg. Jon's fingers trembled. He pulled them back slowly, as if removing them from a blade. The lantern light caught the lifted shell fragment and made it gleam. Beneath it was darkness, then a flash of wet movement. Jon felt his heart slam in his chest. He could not hear anything else. Not the distant groan of the wall. Not the drip of water. Only the faint rasp of shell against shell. Then, from within the egg, came a sound like a breath drawn for the first time. The shell gave way in a sudden, decisive break, as if the egg had grown tired of restraint. A line of cracks spidered outward, and then a section of shell fell inward with a wet crunch. Steam billowed up, thick enough to blur the lantern light. Something moved within, a slick coil of pale flesh. Sam made a small, broken sound. Jon could not tell if it was a sob or a laugh. Jon leaned forward despite himself, drawn by the same force that had made him lift the egg from black ice. He saw a head first, small, wedge-shaped, eyes closed. A ridge of soft spines ran along the crown, flattened with wet. The creature's skin was pale, not the red gold of the painted dragons in Sam's books, not the black of Balerion the Dread. This was the color of new bone, the color of winter sunlight on ice. Dark veins marbled it, smoky patterns beneath translucent scales. Pushed again and more shell cracked. A clawed forelimb emerged, tiny talons flexing. The creature dragged itself forward with surprising strength, slick with egg fluid that steamed in the cold air. Its wings were folded tight, membranes crumpled like wet parchment. Jon's breath caught. It was beautiful in a way that made his skin prickle. It was ugly too, in the way newborn things were ugly. Too raw, too real, too honest. The hatchling's eyes opened. They were not blue, not brown. They were the color of embers, dark around the edges and glowing at the center, as if something burned behind them. He stared at Jon. Jon felt something in his chest shift, like a lock turning. He did not know if it was magic or instinct or simply the weight of the moment. He only knew that the creature's gaze held him with a force no man's gaze ever had. The hatchling opened its mouth and made a sound, thin, sharp, furious. Not a roar, not yet. A scream like a kettle boiling. It flailed, struggling to get its legs under it. Ghost rose with a sudden jerk, a growl rolling out. The direwolf's teeth showed. His hackles bristled. The hatchling screamed again, turning its head toward Ghost. Its tiny throat bulged. A flicker of light flared inside its mouth. Jon moved without thinking. He reached out and placed his hand gently on the hatchling's neck, just behind its head. The scales beneath his fingers were warm and slick. The creature went rigid, then stilled, as if the touch pinned it. Jon's voice came out low, rough. "Easy," he whispered. "Easy." The hatchling trembled, then exhaled a thin stream of heat. Not flame, not fully, but a breath that made the air shimmer. It smelled like hot stone. Ghost's growl faltered. He stared, ears still flat, but he did not lunge. He did not flee. He watched Jon's hand on the creature as if trying to decide whether Jon had lost his mind. Sam's lantern hand shook so badly the light danced across ice walls. "Oh," Sam whispered. "Oh gods, it's real." Jon did not look at Sam. He could not tear his gaze from the creature. The hatchling's eyes blinked slowly. Its head tilted, bird-like. It made a softer sound, a rasp that could have been curiosity. Then it pushed itself up, awkward on four legs, and pressed its head into Jon's palm the way a pup did when it wanted comfort. Jon felt heat soak into his skin. The hatchling's body was small but dense, full of muscle and bone. Its heart beat fast, frantic, a hummingbird trapped in a ribcage. Jon could feel it through the scales. The egg behind it collapsed further, shell pieces falling away, revealing the empty cradle. Steam rose from the broken shell, and the chamber smelled of heat and birth. Sam took a step forward, then stopped as if afraid the air itself might bite. "Jon," he whispered, What do we do with it?" Jon's mind struggled to catch up. The creature was here, alive, in his hands. He looked around the chamber. Ice walls, blue shadow, a single lantern. This was no place for a hatchling, no matter how born of fire. It needed warmth, food, space. It needed secrecy most of all. "It can't stay here," Jon said. His voice sounded distant to his own ears. But Sam's eyes darted to the tunnel beyond. "If anyone hears..." Jon glanced down at the hatchling. It stared up at him, unblinking. Its mouth opened slightly, and Jon saw tiny teeth like needles. It made a soft churring sound, almost like a cat. Then it snapped at a piece of shell, biting and shaking it as if angry at its own prison. Jon's lips twitched despite himself. "Hungry," he murmured. Sam's face went pale. Hungry. Jon thought of the kitchens, of the meat stores, of the goats and chickens and salted beef, of the way men rationed food in winter. He thought of the way a dragon ate in the tales. Whole cows, whole sheep, whatever it pleased. "It's small," Jon said, as if that solved anything. The hatchling suddenly jerked its head toward Jon's cloak and bit the edge of it, tugging. Jon felt the sharp pinch through cloth. The creature hissed, then released, tasting. Its tongue flicked, dark and quick. "It wants heat," Sam whispered. "You're warm." He swallowed. "It likes you." Jon did not know what to do with that. He had been liked by men for reasons, disliked for others. He had been followed into battle. He had been stabbed by brothers who called him traitor. A dragon's liking was not like a man's. It felt older, deeper, like a bond that did not ask permission. Ghost stepped closer, head low. He sniffed the hatchling cautiously, then sneezed again, offended. The hatchling hissed, tiny wings flaring slightly. Ghost bared his teeth. "Enough," Jon said sharply to both of them. His hand pressed on the hatchling's neck again. The creature stiffened, then settled, eyes narrowing as if sulking. To Ghost, Jon said, "He's not prey." Ghost stared at him. Jon could almost hear what the direwolf thought. "Neither are you, and yet." Sam's voice trembled. "We can't, Jon, we can't keep a dragon in Castle Black." Jon looked at the broken shell, at steam, at the wet creature clinging to his hand. "I already did," he said. The words tasted like doom. He slipped off his glove carefully and laid his bare hand on the hatchling's side. Heat poured into his skin. The scales were softer than he'd expected, almost pliable, like leather warmed by sun. The creature leaned into the touch, eyes half-litting. Then it opened its mouth and nipped Jon's thumb. Jon hissed, pulling back. A bead of blood welled, bright against pale skin. The hatchling froze, its eyes locked on the blood. It made a small, eager sound and lunged, mouth opening wider. Jon jerked his hand away. "No," he snapped. The hatchling's throat bulged. For a heartbeat, Jon thought it would scream again. Instead, it made a rasping cough. A tiny flame flickered between its teeth. It was not a stream, not a roar. It was a candle flame that flared and died, but it was flame all the same, golden at the core, pale at the edges.
Sam gasped.
Ghost flinched back. Jon stared, heart pounding. Fire. In the wall's belly. A thing that should not be. The flame died, leaving only the smell of hot stone. The hatchling blinked, then looked at Jon again, as if waiting for approval. Jon's throat tightened. He thought of the dead. He thought of how Wights burned. He thought, with sudden sick clarity, of what men would do if they knew. "Sam," he said quietly, "can you keep a secret that could kill you?" Sam's eyes filled with tears. He nodded, swallowing. "Yes," he whispered. "Yes. Jon gathered the hatchling gently, scooping it up with both hands. It was surprisingly heavy for its size, all bone and muscle and possibility. It squirmed, then settled against his chest, seeking warmth. His head tucked beneath Jon's chin like a bird. Jon felt its heat seep through his furs. The bond tightened like a knot. He looked at Ghost. "You too," he murmured. "You keep it." Ghost's ears twitched. He did not answer, but he followed when Jon moved toward the tunnel. They left the broken shell behind, scattered pale fragments on blue ice like pieces of a shattered moon. Jon carried the hatchling deeper into the wall, and with every step he felt the truth settle heavier. The Cold War he had been fighting had just gained a new kind of fire. They hid the hatchling in the oldest part of the wormways, in a narrow chamber behind a collapsed stair where only a man who knew the wall's bones could squeeze through. Jon lined the floor with furs stolen from the stores and set the creature down. It crawled in circles, sniffing, claws clicking softly on ice, then curled up as if exhausted by birth and fear and the sheer labor of being alive. Sam brought meat. Small pieces at first, stolen from the kitchens in his sleeves. The hatchling devoured them with frantic hunger, biting and tearing with tiny teeth that should not have been able to do much damage and yet did. When Sam's fingers got too close, it snapped at them, and Sam yelped and nearly dropped the lantern. "Careful," Jon had warned, though he knew it was useless. Dragons did not do careful. Dragons did what dragons did. The creature slept after eating, breathing slow, warmth rolling off it in waves. The ice beneath it slickened with meltwater. Jon worried, watching the wall sweat around this little furnace. But there was no other place. Not yet. He returned to his duties with the hatchling's heat still on his skin, as if he carried a brand beneath his clothes. He signed orders, listened to complaints, mediated quarrels between black brothers and free folk. He tried to keep his face calm when men spoke of supplies and discipline, when Bowen Marsh's voice turned sharp with disapproval, when the memory of pale eyes watching from trees crawled across his thoughts like spiders. And always, beneath everything, he felt the hatchling's presence like a second heartbeat. Melisandre found him on the third day, not in the wormways, not near the hidden chamber. Melisandre did not need to catch him in the act. She moved like smoke toward whatever burned. Jon had gone to the Queen's Tower because Queen Celis' steward had demanded more wood and more men for her household. Jon would have refused any other lord, but Stannis Baratheon's wife was not any other lord. She was a complication he could not afford to ignore, not when Stannis' shadow still touched the wall even after the king had marched south. The tower corridor smelled of incense and cold stone. Red torches burned in iron sconces, their flames oddly steady despite the draft. Jon's boots echoed on the steps. He knocked once and entered. Queen Celis Florence sat stiff-backed near a brazier, hands folded, mouth pinched. Her face looked carved from sour milk. Shireen Baratheon sat on a stool beside her, a book open on her lap. The child's gray eyes lifted, curious, gentle, and Jon felt an unexpected tightness in his chest. Shireen's scar, grayscale turned back by Maester's skill, ran like a rough map along her cheek, a reminder that even sickness could be fought, that some things did not have to end in death. Melisandre stood near the brazier, her red gown dark as blood in the firelight. The ruby at her throat caught flame and returned it, pulsing faintly as if alive. Jon bowed his head in the manner demanded by courtesy, not by loyalty. "Your Grace." Celis' eyes narrowed. "Lord Commander," she said, voice thin. "My rooms are cold. The wall leaches warmth like a corpse leaches life. My servants say your stores are full, and yet you ration wood as if you mean to freeze us." "Our stores are not full," Jon said evenly. "Winter is here. We ration so we live." Celis sniffed, as if the word live offended her. Shireen's eyes dropped back to her book, but her mouth twitched slightly as if she hid a smile. Melisandre did not speak. She watched Jon. Her gaze slid over him slowly, not like a woman looking at a man but like a priestess reading entrails. Jon felt the hairs on his arms rise. The warmth he carried beneath his skin seemed to respond, a faint thrum. Melisandre's lips curved. "You have been beyond the wall," she said softly. Jon's jaw tightened. "Yes, you brought back more than a report," she said. Celis' head snapped toward her. "What is she talking about?" Melisandre's eyes did not leave Jon. "There is a scent on him," she murmured. "Not smoke, not heathfire, something older." Shireen looked up then, interest bright. "Is it a dragon?" she asked, voice small but eager. Celis hissed. "Shireen." Shireen ducked her head, chastened, but her eyes remained on Jon with stubborn curiosity. Jon's throat went dry. He forced his face to remain blank. "There are no dragons here," he said. "Only cold." Melisandre's smile deepened slightly, as if she enjoyed being lied to. "So you say," she murmured, "and yet my fires have shown me a shadow with wings in the snow, a stone that sweats, a boy in black with a flame pressed to his heart." Jon felt the egg's heat all over again, though it was hidden far below. The memory of it made his skin prickle. Celis leaned forward, eyes sharp. "What is this? Are you hiding something from the king?" Stannis is not here, Jon thought, but he did not say it. He kept his voice level. "I am hiding nothing from anyone," he lied. Melisandre took a step closer. Her gown whispered against stone. The ruby at her throat glowed brighter, catching light that wasn't there. "You are a man of ice," she said softly, "and yet I see fire in you." Jon's fingers curled at his sides. "You see what you want to see." Melisandre's eyes narrowed, and for a moment the warmth in the room seemed to lean toward her, as if flame respected flame. "I see what the Lord shows me," she said, "and the Lord has not been silent." Shireen's voice came again, timid but insistent. "Maester Crescent used to read me stories," she said, "about dragons. He said they were gone. But books always say things are gone and then they come back." Celis' face tightened. "Enough." Jon looked at Shireen, and something in him softened. The child's world was books and prayers and cold walls. She wanted wonder like a starving man wanted bread. "There are no dragons at Castle Black," Jon said, but his voice gentled despite himself. "Your book will have to do." Shireen's eyes dropped, disappointed. Melisandre watched that exchange with a faint tilt of her head, as if marking it. "A dragon would be a great gift," she said, voice quiet, almost tender. "A weapon against the darkness. A sign." Jon's patience snapped like a rope pulled too hard. "Everything is a sign to you." Melisandre's smile did not fade. "And everything burns," she said. Celis waved a hand sharply. "Lord Commander, I will have more wood," she demanded. "Or I will write to my husband and tell him you neglect your king's wife." Jon forced himself to breathe. This was the kind of battle he could fight. Petty demands, political threats. He could manage men. He could manage queens with cold mouths. "I'll send wood," he said. "What we can spare." Celis nodded stiffly, satisfied. Shireen's eyes flicked up again, hopeful, but Jon could not offer her anything. He turned to leave. Melisandre spoke one last time, soft as flame. "If you have found a piece of fire," she said, "do not bury it in ice. Ice is treacherous. It steals." Jon paused with his hand on the door. He did not look back. "So does fire," he said, and left before she could answer. In the corridor, cold air struck his face like a slap. Jon exhaled slowly, forcing his heartbeat to steady. Behind him, Melisandre's gaze lingered like heat. Jon could feel it even through stone. He realized then that secrecy would not be a wall. It would be a race between the hatchling's growth and the world's hunger to claim it. The dead came into Castle Black the way rot came into wood. Not with a trumpet, not with a banner, but quietly, patiently, finding the cracks. Jon had known it could happen. He had seen the Wights' hand in the jar in the storeroom years ago, fingers twitching like a spider. He had watched corpses move inside the wall's shadow, as if the cold itself carried a command. The wall's spells kept out much, but they did not cleanse what men carried in. That night, the corpses were wildlings. A cart had arrived from the north gate with bodies, men who had died of cold or hunger or wounds from an old skirmish. The stewards had brought them inside the yard to prepare for burning, because the ground outside was too hard to dig. The brothers had been careless. They always got careless when the work was familiar. Jon had been in the hall, listening to complaints about food distribution, when the first scream cut through the murmurs. It was a high, panicked cry that turned every head. Then another. Men shoved back from tables. Tankards spilled ale onto wood. Jon's chair scraped as he rose, hand already on Longclaw. He ran into the yard. The night was thick with snow, the yard lit by torches that threw orange islands into white. Men were shouting, stumbling, drawing steel. In the center of the yard, the cart of corpses rocked violently as if something beneath it fought to escape. A dead wildling toppled over the side. It hit the ground with a wet thud, then jerked upright. Its eyes were pale blue, wrong in torchlight. Its mouth opened in a silent snarl. Frost crusted its beard. It moved with unnatural speed, lunging at the nearest brother, hands clawing. The brother screamed, fell, and the Wight fell on him, teeth going for throat. Jon surged forward. "Fire!" he shouted. "Torches!" Men scrambled. Some froze, staring as if their minds could not accept what their eyes showed. Others reacted on instinct, swinging swords, stabbing spears into dead flesh that did not bleed. Ghost burst into the yard like a white arrow. He hit a Wight and tore it off a man, jaws closing with a sick crunch. The corpse flailed, arms windmilling, but Ghost shook it like a rag until it stopped. More bodies rose from the cart, tumbling, crawling, standing. Dead hands grabbed at living cloaks. Dead teeth snapped. Jon slashed with long claw, cutting through a Wight's neck. The head flew, eyes still open, mouth still twisting, and rolled across the snow like a grotesque ball. "Burn them!" Jon roared. A torch slammed into a corpse's chest. Flame caught on clothing, but snow dampened it, hissing. The corpse did not stop until the fire climbed into its hair and it collapsed, thrashing. Jon hacked again, feeling Valyrian steel bite clean. The Wights came anyway. He saw Sam in the chaos, lantern clutched to his chest as he ran toward Jon, face white with terror. Sam's mouth opened as if to shout, but no sound came. Jon's mind flashed to the wormways, to the hatchling. No, he thought fiercely. Not here. Not now. The secret must hold. A Wight slammed into him, knocking him sideways. Jon stumbled, regained footing, and drove Longclaw through its ribs. The corpse did not even grunt. It grabbed for his face, fingers like iron. Jon wrenched free, slashed its arm off, then kicked it back. Another Wight lunged at Sam. Sam shrieked at last, dropping the lantern as he flailed with a dagger. The lantern hit the snow, flame guttering. Jon moved toward him, but a cluster of corpses blocked the way, closing in. In the corner of his vision, he saw a brother fall beneath two Wights, arms pinwheeling, mouth open in a soundless cry. Jon's chest tightened with rage. He could not be everywhere. He could not save everyone. He could not. A warmth surged against his collarbone. Jon froze for half a heartbeat, shocked by the sensation, as if someone had pressed a hot stone to his skin. Then he remembered. The hatchling was not in the wormways. Not anymore. He had moved it earlier that evening. He had told himself it was only for an hour, only to feed it properly near the kitchens while the yard was busy, only because its hunger cries had begun to echo through ice tunnels and he feared someone would hear. He had carried it under his cloak, hidden close to his chest, and brought it into an unused storage room near the armory. He had meant to return it after feeding. He had not. Now, beneath his cloak, the hatchling shifted. Jon felt it climb awkwardly, claws catching on wool. Panic flared. If it emerged now, if men saw, the hatchling's head pushed out near Jon's collar. Its ember eyes blinked at the torchlit chaos. It made a sound, soft and eager, not afraid. It smelled blood. "No!" Jon hissed under his breath, trying to shove it back. "Stay!" The hatchling wriggled free, perching on his shoulder like some monstrous bird. Its pale scales caught torchlight and gleamed. Dark veins rippled beneath. Its wings flared slightly, small but already strong enough to snap air. A brother nearby stared, mouth falling open. "Mother have mercy," he whispered. Jon's stomach dropped. There was no hiding now, not from men who were looking directly at the impossible. A Wight lunged at Jon again, arms outstretched. The hatchling turned its head, eyes narrowing. His throat bulged. Jon had a heartbeat to think. It will burn the yard. It will burn the men. It will... The hatchling exhaled. Flame erupted, bright as a forge. Not the thin flicker Jon had seen in the wormways, but a proper burst. A jet that roared from the hatchling's mouth and struck the Wight full in the chest. The corpse ignited instantly. Fire climbed dead flesh like it had been soaked in oil. The Wight staggered, arms flailing, then collapsed in a heap of burning rags and bones. Snow around it hissed and melted, steam rising in a white rush. Men shouted, some in fear, some in awe. Jon stared, heart hammering, as the hatchling's flame died. The creature's eyes gleamed with fierce satisfaction. It made a triumphant chirr. Another Wight rushed. The hatchling snapped its jaws and breathed again, flame catching the corpse's hair, turning it into a torch that stumbled and fell. For a heartbeat, the yard's chaos shifted. Men who had been losing ground surged forward behind the sudden advantage.
Torches met burning corpses.
Spears drove Wights back into flame. The dead fell faster now, fire finishing what steel began. Sam reached Jon, eyes wild. He stared at the hatchling on Jon's shoulder as if he might faint. "Jon, no time," Jon snapped. He slashed a Wight's head off and kicked its body into a patch of fire. "Get torches. Keep burning." Sam stumbled away, shouting, voice cracking, "Fire! Burn them! Burn them!" The hatchling watched the flames with bright hunger, then turned its gaze north, toward the wall's looming shadow. His head tilted, ears, small ridges, twitching. It made a soft, uneasy sound. Jon felt it too, a sudden cold prickling along his spine, as if something far beyond the yard had noticed the flame. He looked up at the wall, towering white under night sky. Snow whipped along its face. For a moment he imagined pale eyes staring down from the top. Not his brother's eyes, but something else. Something that watched fire with ancient hatred. The Wights were nearly done. Burning corpses littered the yard, steam rising. Men stood panting, faces blackened with soot, eyes wide. Some stared at the hatchling openly now, as if unable to look away. Bowen Marsh pushed through the crowd, face pinched with fury and fear. "What in the seven hells?" he began, then stopped, eyes locking on the creature. His face drained of color. Jon's throat tightened. There it was, the moment he had feared. No more secrecy, no more pretending. The hatchling lifted its head proudly, as if presenting itself to the yard. Its wings spread slightly, catching torchlight. It looked absurdly small amid the wall's vastness, and yet the way men stared, you would have thought it was already full-grown. Bowen Marsh's voice came out hoarse. "Lord Commander," he said slowly, each word heavy. "Tell me I'm not seeing what I'm seeing." Jon's grip tightened on Longclaw. His mind raced through lies, through excuses, through half-truths that might buy time. But the yard smelled of burned dead, and the hatchling's heat pressed against his neck like a brand. Jon lifted his chin. "You're seeing," he said, voice steady despite the storm inside him. "What will keep us alive?" The yard fell into a silence broken only by the crackle of burning corpses and the distant groan of ice. In that silence, the hatchling made a soft sound, content, possessive, and Jon realized that even if every man at Castle Black hated him for it, the creature had chosen him, and choice, he knew, was a kind of chain. Dawn came thin and reluctant, a gray smear on the horizon that barely deserved the name of light. The storm eased only enough to make the world quiet again, as if exhausted by its own violence. Jon stood atop the wall with the wind tearing at his cloak and the cold biting his cheeks. Below, the yard was a scar of blackened snow where burned corpses had been dragged away and the ground steamed faintly. Men moved like ghosts in the early light, silent, heads down, doing the work that followed horror. No one laughed, no one sang. Even Edison Tollett's misery had been muted into something like reverence. Sam stood beside Jon, wrapped in furs, face drawn with sleeplessness. His eyes were red-rimmed. He kept glancing at Jon as if expecting him to vanish and wake up in his own bed, safe in the lie that dragons did not exist. Ghost lay near Jon's boots, white fur ruffling in the wind. His head was up, ears pricked. He watched the world beyond the wall with the same attention he'd shown in the haunted forest, but now there was a new edge to it, an awareness of another predator standing near his pack. That predator perched on the parapet. The hatchling clung to the ice with clawed feet, its pale body stark against white. It had dried overnight, scales no longer slick. The dark veins beneath its skin looked sharper in morning light, like smoke trapped under ice. Its wings were folded but larger than they had been in the wormways, as if it had stretched them in secret. Its eyes, ember dark, watched the north with unsettling intelligence for something so newly born. Steam rose where its claws touched the parapet, melting tiny pits into the ice. Jon watched it and felt a complicated ache. Pride, fear, responsibility, all tangled together until he could not tell one from another. He had led men into battle. He had held dying brothers in his arms. He had faced kings and wildlings and priests. None of it had prepared him for the way the hatchling's presence made the world feel altered, as if history itself had shifted its weight. Behind them, Bowen Marsh stood with a cluster of stewards. Their faces were grim, eyes wary. Bowen's gaze kept flicking to the hatchling with a mixture of hatred and hunger, as if he could not decide whether to destroy it or claim it. Jon had spoken with Bowen in the dark hours before dawn, when the yard still smelled of burned dead. Bowen had demanded explanations. Jon had given truths, some. He had said he found the egg beyond the wall. He had said he brought it back because fire mattered against the dead. He had not said why he had kept it secret, though Bowen already knew. Because Bowen would have tried to take it. Because men always tried to take what they feared. Bowen had not called him traitor. Not yet. Bowen had called him reckless, dangerous, arrogant. Bowen had said the Watch was not a kennel for dragons. Bowen had said kings would come, and war would follow. Bowen had asked if Jon meant to crown himself with fire. Jon had answered with a coldness he barely felt. I mean to keep men alive. That argument was not finished. It had only paused, like a sword raised but not yet swung. A raven croaked nearby, wings beating as it rose and caught the wind. More ravens followed, black specks scattering into gray sky. Messages would fly today. Jon could not stop that. Men would talk. Castle Black could not keep secrets any more than it could keep warmth. Sam's voice was small. They'll send word, he whispered, to Winterfell, to Eastwatch, to Old Town. Yes, Jon said. And Queen Celis Melisandre. Sam's voice shook. She knows. Jon's eyes narrowed. She suspects, he said, and suspicion is enough to start a fire.
Sam swallowed.
What are you going to do? Jon looked north. Beyond the wall, the world stretched endless and white. The forest was a dark smear, the hills pale humps. Somewhere out there, in the cold and the silence, the others moved. Somewhere out there, pale eyes watched. Somewhere out there, Jon had lifted an egg from black ice like a stolen heart. He felt the hatchling shift on the parapet, turned its head toward him, watching. Its eyes blinked slowly, and in that blink Jon felt again the strange lock turning, the bond tightening. The creature made a soft sound, almost questioning, and leaned slightly toward Jon as if expecting touch. Jon reached out and brushed his fingers along the hatchling's neck. The scales were warm despite the wind. The creature's eyes half-lidded, pressed into his hand. Ghost watched that gesture, ears flicking, then looked away toward the north as if accepting reluctantly that this new beast was now part of Jon's shadow. Jon drew his hand back and clenched it into a fist. He could not afford tenderness. Tenderness made weakness. Weakness got men killed. But he could not deny what he felt. The hatchling was not only a weapon. It was a living thing that had chosen him. And if it grew, it would grow into something that could burn armies and change maps. He thought of the dead in the yard, burning. He thought of how easily the hatchling's flame had taken them, as if the dead were made of tinder. He thought of the way the creature had lifted its head afterward, proud, hungry, as if it understood what it had done. It saved men, Sam whispered, as if reading his thoughts. Last night, he swallowed. It saved you. Jon's mouth tightened. It saved the yard, he said, though he knew Sam was right. The Wights' hands at his throat in the forest still haunted him. Ghost had saved him then. Last night, the hatchling had saved him from being overwhelmed. Two beasts, two kinds of loyalty, both bound to him. The wind shifted, colder. Jon's eyes narrowed. For a heartbeat he thought he heard something. Faint, far away. Not the wind, not the groan of ice. A horn? No, too distant, too uncertain. Or perhaps it was only his mind, seeing threats in every sound now. The hatchling lifted its head sharply, list. Meaning, its throat vibrated with a low hum. It stared north, wings twitching. Jon felt a chill unrelated to weather. Sam, he said softly. Sam looked up, eyes wide. What? Jon's gaze stayed fixed on the horizon. The dead will come, he said, if they haven't already started. Sam's face went ashen. Because of it? Jon glanced at the hatchling. Steam rose where its claws gripped ice. Because of everything, he said. Because winter doesn't stop. Because the wall is only ice and spells can break. Behind them, Bowen Marsh's voice carried, hard. Lord Commander, Bowen called. We need to speak. The men are afraid. Jon did not turn immediately. He watched the north a moment longer, as if he could see through miles of snow and trees. He saw only gray light and white emptiness. Then he turned to face the wall's south side, where men waited with fear in their eyes and questions on their tongues. The hatchling remained on the parapet, watching him, unafraid. Jon Snow inhaled cold air until it burned his lungs. He had been forged in cold all his life. Now fire had found him anyway. He stepped toward Bowen Marsh and the gathered stewards, Longclaw at his side, Ghost at his heel, and a dragon above his shoulder, and he knew with a bleak clarity that nothing at Castle Black would ever be simple again. Not vows, not brothers, not war. And somewhere beyond the wall, in the endless white, something watched the thin line of smoke rising from burned dead and began, patiently, to move. The meeting began before Jon Snow could swallow more than a mouthful of stale bread. Bowen Marsh came with his mouth already tightened, as if he meant to keep every word inside and only let out what duty demanded. Othel Yarwick filled the doorway behind him like a wall of his own, beard crusted with frost and eyes that had seen too many winters. Iron Emmett followed without being asked, because Iron Emmett had decided that where Jon Snow went, danger followed, and he meant to stand between them. Edison Tollet trailed at the back as if he had been summoned by doom itself and did not want to arrive too early, lest doom take it as eagerness. Jon Snow let them in and barred the door. The hearth snapped with low flame. Ghost lay beside it, head on paws, watching the men with pale eyes that missed nothing. For a moment no one spoke. Bowen Marsh's gaze slid over the room, searching for what he wanted to accuse Jon Snow of hiding. If Bowen Marsh expected to see a dragon crouched on the table like a cat, he would be disappointed. The hatchling was nowhere near the solar now. Jon Snow had carried it out before dawn, wrapped tight beneath his cloak, down into the wormways again where ice and stone swallowed sound. He had not slept, but he had done that much. Bowen Marsh's eyes returned to Jon Snow's face. You will explain, Bowen Marsh said. Not a request, a verdict. Jon Snow sat behind the table because the chair reminded men that he was Lord Commander, even if the title sat uneasy on his shoulders. I found an egg beyond the wall, Jon Snow said. It hatched. Othel Yarwick snorted. Hatchet eggs belong in kitchens, Othel Yarwick said. Not on the wall. Edison Tollet cleared his throat softly, as if he feared his own voice might draw lightning. If it hatches more eggs, we'll have omelets enough to last the winter, Edison Tollet said. Assuming we're not eaten first. Iron Emmett shot Edison Tollet a look that could have cut timber. Edison Tollet shrugged as if to say, better to joke than scream. Bowen Marsh leaned forward, fingers splayed on the table's edge. You brought it here, Bowen Marsh said. You kept it secret, and then you loosed it in the yard like fire, Jon Snow said flatly. We needed it. We needed discipline, Bowen Marsh snapped. We needed order. We needed to keep the men from panic. We needed to keep the free folk from thinking you've turned into some god of theirs. Instead we have this. We have brothers whispering in corners. We have wildlings grinning like wolves. We have a monster on our wall. It is a whelp, Jon Snow said. Small now, Othel Yarwick rumbled. Nothing with wings stays small. Jon Snow's eyes held on Bowen Marsh. Last night the dead rose in our yard, Jon Snow said. We burned them. Men lived who would have died without flame. Torches burn, Bowen Marsh said. Torches gutter in snow, Jon Snow replied. You saw how the corpses kept coming. You saw men freeze. You saw... He cut himself off before anger made him careless. The dead will not stop because we want neat ledgers and quiet halls. Bowen Marsh's cheeks flushed. You are sworn, Bowen Marsh said. We are sworn. We do not take crowns. We do not take wives. We do not take the toys of kings. A dragon is not a toy, Jon Snow said. It is a king's weapon, Bowen Marsh insisted. And king's weapons bring kings. If word of this reaches south, it will, Othel Yarwick said, voice grim. It already has. Men saw it. Even if Bowen Marsh cut out every tongue at Castle Black, ravens would still fly. There are always ravens. Jon Snow's gaze flicked to the corner where his raven cage stood, dark shapes shifting within. He had already heard the birds croak restlessly, as if they sensed the weight of what would be written today. Iron Emmett spoke then, blunt as his fists. If it's here, we control it, Iron Emmett said. If it's not, someone else does. I'd rather have it on our side. Bowen Marsh's eyes flashed. On our side, Bowen Marsh repeated, as if the phrase itself were treason. And whose side is that, Iron Emmett? The Night's Watch's? Or Jon Snow's? Jon Snow felt the words like a knife. That was the rot. Not the dead outside the wall, but the suspicion inside it. He had held Castle Black together with rope made of thin trust, and now Bowen Marsh was sawing through it with steady hands. The Night's Watches, Jon Snow said. And you decide that alone? Bowen Marsh said. Jon Snow leaned forward. I decide because I must, Jon Snow said quietly. When the horn blows and the dead come, men will look to someone to give orders. If I hesitate, they die. If I ask for a vote, they die while hands are raised. Othel Yarwick's jaw worked. The wall's old spells, Othel Yarwick said, shifting ground. They were made to keep out the cold, to keep out the others. What does fire do to spells made of ice? What does dragon heat do to my wall? Jon Snow remembered steam rising where hatchling claws touched ice. He remembered meltwater slicking the wormway floor. He chose his words carefully. The wall has held fire before, Jon Snow said. Men have burned torches along it for thousands of years. Torches are not dragons, Othel Yarwick growled. Torches don't melt tunnels. Torches don't grow. Bowen Marsh straightened, seizing that. This is madness, Bowen Marsh said. You will give the creature to whom? Jon Snow cut in. To Queen Celis Florent? She would lock it in a tower and pray at it. To Melisandre? She would bleed it for visions. To some lord in the north? He would march it south and burn other men to claim a crown. To the Iron Throne? A king's hand would clutch it and call it justice. Edison Tollet murmured. If we give it to the Iron Throne, perhaps they'll give us warm blankets in return. Or a nice song about our heroic deaths. Iron Emmett grunted. Bowen Marsh's nostrils flared. Jon Snow's voice hardened. It's day. S with the watch, Jon Snow said. Under my command. Bowen Marsh's eyes went cold. So it is, Bowen Marsh said softly. A crown with wings. Jon Snow felt something in him go still. Careful, Jon Snow warned. Bowen Marsh did not flinch. If you keep it, you endanger us, Bowen Marsh said. If you lose it, you doom us. There is no winning here, only choosing which death comes first. Jon Snow's hands clenched on the table's edge. He looked at each man in turn. Bowen Marsh with his tight fear, Othel Yarwick with his builder's worry, Iron Emmett with his blunt readiness, Edison Tollet with his humor like a shield. We choose to live, Jon Snow said, as long as we can. Outside the solar, somewhere deep in the wall, the hatchling shifted in its furs and exhaled warmth into ancient ice. Jon Snow could not hear it from here, but he felt it anyway, a second pulse beneath his own. It was not a crown. It was not a promise. It was a living fire in a world that wanted to freeze. We will speak of rules, Jon Snow continued, forcing his voice into command. No man goes near it without my leave. No man speaks of it to wildlings, to queens, to red women, to ravens. Any man caught spreading tales will lose his tongue. Edison Tollet looked faintly hopeful. If we lose enough tongues, perhaps we'll stop complaining. Othel Yarwick's lips twitched once, then went flat again. Bowen Marsh's face tightened, but he nodded stiffly, as if conceding only because the alternative was open revolt with corpses still smoking in the yard. You'll send no raven? Bowen Marsh asked, and the question held a trap. Jon Snow hesitated. He could say no, and Bowen Marsh would send one himself. He could say yes, and he would be the one who lit the signal fire for every ambitious lord. "I will send ravens," Jon Snow said, choosing the harder truth. "But I will choose the words." Bowen Marsh's eyes narrowed. "Words won't stop men coming," Bowen Marsh said. Jon Snow's gaze held steady. "Then we will be ready," Jon Snow said. When Bowen Marsh turned to leave, his cloak brushed the doorframe like a shroud. Othel Yarwick lingered a heartbeat longer, eyes on Jon Snow. "Walls crack," Othel Yarwick said quietly. "Not all at once. First a hairline, then water, then the collapse. Don't forget the wall is made of ice." Jon Snow nodded once. "I won't." After they were gone, Iron Emmett stayed only long enough to say, "If they try something, tell me," and Edison Tollett stayed long enough to mutter, "If they kill you, I hope the dragon eats them," before he drifted away like smoke. Jon Snow sat alone with Ghost and the crackle of the hearth. He listened to the ravens shift in their cage and thought of how every choice was a crack in ice. Jon Snow went to Maester Aemon because there were truths he could not speak to Bowen Marsh. He could command men. He could threaten tongues. He could not command what a dragon meant. Maester Aemon's room smelled of ink, dust, and old wood warmed too often by small fires. The old man sat by the hearth, hands folded, listening to the soft crackle as if it were a story. Samwell Tarly crouched on a stool with a book open across his knees, lips moving silently as he traced unfamiliar letters with a finger. When Jon Snow entered, Maester Aemon lifted his chin. "You have made enemies," Maester Aemon said softly, as if remarking on weather. Jon Snow closed the door behind him. "I already had them," Jon Snow said. Samwell Tarly looked up quickly, eyes shining with worry. "They're talking," Samwell Tarly blurted. "In the kitchens, in the yard. They're saying you've become like Aegon the Conqueror, only colder." Jon Snow's mouth tightened. "Aegon had 3, Jon Snow said. 3 was enough to forge a realm," Maester Aemon murmured. "1 can be enough to shatter one." Jon Snow sat, feeling the exhaustion settle into his bones. He had not slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw pale blue eyes in the yard and ember eyes on his shoulder. "How do I keep them from tearing each other apart?" Jon Snow asked. "The brothers, the Wildlings, the Queen's men, everyone." Maester Aemon's fingers tightened slightly. "You cannot," Maester Aemon said, and there was no cruelty in the words, only age. "You can only choose which tear you will stitch first." Samwell Tarly swallowed and held the book up as if it were a shield. "I found something," Samwell Tarly said, "about eggs, about bonding." Jon Snow's gaze sharpened. "Read it." Samwell Tarly cleared his throat. "It says..." He hesitated, then began, voice low. "It says the Dragon Lords of Valyria placed eggs in the cradles of their newborns. So the dragon and the child would grow together. It says some eggs would not hatch unless the right person touched them. Blood might matter, heat might matter, but..." He looked up, face pale. "But the Maester writing it says no one truly knows. Dragons are not like horses." "No," Jon Snow said. "They are not." Maester Aemon's blind eyes turned toward him. "It chose you," Maester Aemon said, not as question but as knowing. "Even in the yard, it stayed upon your shoulder." Jon Snow's throat tightened. He remembered the hatchling's small claws hooking into his cloak, the way it had lifted its head proudly as if presenting itself. "It stayed because I was there," Jon Snow said. "Because it was warm." "Warmth is part of it," Maester Aemon said gently. "But warmth alone does not bind a beast that burns. Many men have held torches. Few have held dragons." Jon Snow heard the unspoken word beneath that. Blood. He did not answer it. He did not know what to do with it. Samwell Tarly's voice trembled. If you're bonded to it, that's good," Samwell Tarly said quickly. "Because then you can control it. Then no one else can just take it." Jon Snow looked at Samwell Tarly. "Can a man control fire?" Jon Snow asked. Samwell Tarly's mouth opened, then closed helplessly. Maester Aemon smiled faintly. "A man can guide it," Maester Aemon said. "He can feed it. He can give it a place to burn that does not burn him. But control? No." His voice softened. "And yet we ask men to control swords. Swords cut too." Jon Snow rubbed a hand over his face. He felt like ice stretched too thin. "Bowen Marsh thinks I want a crown," Jon Snow said. Maester Aemon's smile faded. "Bowen Marsh thinks you want what he fears," Maester Aemon said. "That is how fear works. It gives itself a face." "And what face do you give it?" Jon Snow asked quietly. Maester Aemon's blind eyes seemed to look past him, into memories. "I have seen dragons," Maester Aemon said softly. "Not with these eyes, but in my mind. I have heard the songs and read the histories. I have watched what men did when they thought fire made them gods." He paused, breath faint. "Dragons do not make men kings. Men make dragons' crowns." Jon Snow's fists clenched. "I don't want it," Jon Snow said. "I believe you," Maester Aemon said. "That is not the danger." Samwell Tarly shifted, licking his lips. "The men will try to take it," Samwell Tarly said, voice small. "Or to kill it, because they're afraid. Or because they want to sell it to someone who will feed them gold." Jon Snow's gaze went hard. "If someone goes near it," Maester Aemon raised a hand, stopping him. "Do not speak only of punishment," Maester Aemon said. "Fear makes men stupid, but it can also be steered." He tilted his head. "What will you tell the Watch, Jon Snow? Not Bowen Marsh, not the stewards, the men who hold spears on the wall, the men who will fight the dead." Jon Snow thought of faces in the yard, soot-black and wide-eyed, staring at the hatchling like it was a miracle or a curse. He thought of how quickly awe turned into rumor. He thought of how quickly rumor turned into knives. "I will tell them the truth I need," Jon Snow said slowly. "That it is here, that it is small, that it is under my command, that it will be used only against the dead." "And the other truth?" Maester Aemon asked softly. Jon Snow's jaw tightened. "That it scares me," Jon Snow admitted. "That it is too much." Samwell Tarly's eyes filled. "It saved them," Samwell Tarly whispered. "Last night, it saved them." Jon Snow looked at Samwell Tarly. "And if it burns a brother?" Jon Snow asked. "If it grows hungry and sees men as meat? If it melts the wall from the inside like a worm in fruit? What then?" Samwell Tarly's mouth trembled. He did not have an answer. Maester Aemon's voice came quiet and sharp. "Then you will choose," Maester Aemon said. "That is what command is, not certainty. Choice." Jon Snow stared into the hearth. Flame danced, careless. He imagined the hatchling's flame, Bree, itchy and eager, and the way snow turned to steam beneath it. He imagined the creature bigger, wings spanning the yard, fire pouring like a river. He swallowed. "What name?" Maester Aemon asked suddenly. Jon Snow blinked. "Name? A dragon without a name is a thing," Maester Aemon said. "A dragon with a name becomes a part of the world. A part of you." Samwell Tarly's eyes brightened with sudden frantic hope, as if naming could make the impossible manageable. "We could call it—" Samwell Tarly began, then stopped, flustered. Something fitting, like Frostwing. Or, "No," Jon Snow said sharply, and the word surprised even him. He softened it with effort. "Not yet." Maester Aemon nodded as if he understood. "You fear that naming it will make it real," Maester Aemon said. Jon Snow's voice came out hoarse. "It is real," Jon Snow said. "That is the problem." Maester Aemon's hand reached out and found Jon Snow's wrist, fingers light but steady. "Do not let it make you forget your vows," Maester Aemon said. "But do not let your vows make you blind to what the realm needs. The Night's Watch was made to face what other men would not. If the gods place fire in your hands in the darkest winter, you do not throw it away because it burns." Jon Snow's throat tightened. He nodded once. Outside, somewhere within the wall's ancient veins, a small dragon shifted in its furs and breathed, and the ice listened. By midday, the yard was a kettle threatening to boil over. The free folk had heard. Of course they had. They lived on rumor the way other men lived on bread. A whisper carried from one cook fire to the next, grew teeth, grew wings. By the time it reached the pens, it was no longer a hatchling on Jon Snow's shoulder. It was a great white dragon perched atop the wall, breathing fire into the clouds, calling the Wildlings north to war. The Night's Watch brothers had heard too, and their hearing came with fear sharpened into anger. Men who could face a sword could not always face a miracle. Miracles made the world strange, and strange worlds did not have rules men could trust. Jon Snow stepped into the yard with Iron Emmett at his shoulder and Ghost at his heel. The yard smelled of wet ash still, the burned dead scraped away but not forgotten. The ground was churned by boots, blackened in patches where fire had licked snow into slush. Two lines had formed without anyone ordering it. Black cloaks on one side, free folk furs on the other. Between them, empty space like the thin ice over deep water. Tormund Giantsbane stood at the front of the free folk line as if he had grown out of the snow itself. His red beard was crusted with frost. His grin was broad and hungry, the grin of a man who had smelled something wild. Jon Snow. Tormund Giantsbane bellowed. I hear you've got a lizard that spits fire. Some wildlings laughed. Others stared with reverent silence. A few made signs against evil with fingers that had never touched septon prayers. Children clung to their mother's legs, eyes wide, asking without words whether this was a story or a nightmare. Bowen Marsh stood at the front of the Night's Watch line, mouth pinched. Septon Celador hovered behind him like a pale ghost, clutching his necklace and muttering about the seven. Jon Snow saw Othel Yarwick too, arms crossed, eyes on the wall as if expecting it to crack. Keep them back, Bowen Marsh hissed when Jon Snow approached. They'll rush the kitchens next, or the wormways. They'll do what I tell them, Jon Snow said, though he did not entirely believe it. Jon Snow stepped into the empty space, raising a hand. Enough, Jon Snow called, voice carrying. Quiet. The yard did not go silent at once. Men and wildlings muttered, shifted, spat. Then Ghost lifted his head and let out a low rumble that rolled through the yard like distant thunder. The sound was not a growl meant to attack. It was a growl meant to remind everyone that teeth existed. Silence settled, uneasy. Tormund Giantsbane's grin widened. Good dog, Tormund Giantsbane said cheerfully. Where's the other beast? The little fire snake. I want to see it. A murmur rippled through the free folk. Some faces lit with excitement, others tightened with fear. Jon Snow kept his expression flat. There is no dragon for you to see, Jon Snow said. Tormund Giantsbane laughed. Liar, Tormund Giantsbane said. The crows in the kitchens are chattering. Even your sad little men can't keep their tongues from wagging when the world does something interesting. Behind Jon Snow, Bowen Marsh made a sound like a choke. Jon Snow's gaze held on Tormund Giantsbane. The dead rose in the yard last night, Jon Snow said. The creature burned them. Men lived. That is all you need to know. Tormund Giantsbane's grin dimmed slightly at the mention of the dead. He spat to the side. Dead men walking, Tormund Giantsbane said, voice rougher. I've seen them. They don't die easy. No, Jon Snow said. They don't. A wildling woman with a scarred cheek stepped forward half a pace. Is it an ice dragon? She asked, voice low, eyes fixed on Jon Snow as if he could summon the creature by speaking. Ice dragons are tales, Jon Snow said, though he was not entirely sure anymore what was tale and what was truth. He thought of the hatchling's pale scales. He thought of dark veins like smoke beneath ice. This is a dragon, a small one, and it belongs to the Night's Watch. A murmur rose, approval from some, anger from others. The free folk did not believe in belonging the way kneelers did. They believed in taking. Tormund Giantsbane's eyes glittered. Belongs? Tormund Giantsbane repeated, amused. You talk like a kneeler now, Jon Snow. Things don't belong. Things are. Jon Snow's patience thinned. In my yard, things belong, Jon Snow said. Or they leave. Tormund Giantsbane's laughter boomed. Listen to him, Tormund Giantsbane shouted to his people. Jon Snow thinks he's the king beyond the wall of crows. Some wildlings laughed. Some Night's Watch brothers bristled, hands tightening on spear shafts. Jon Snow felt the kettle start to boil. He forced his voice into calm. You want to live through this winter, Jon Snow said. So do I. The dragon is not your god. It is not your prize. It is not your threat unless you make it one. A young wildling man with wild eyes shouted. Fire will melt your wall. Fire will free us. Bowen Marsh stiffened. Othel Yarwick's eyes flashed. Jon Snow's gaze snapped to the young man. My wall is the only thing between you and the dead, Jon Snow said sharply. If you want it melted, walk north and melt yourself. The wildling fell silent under Jon Snow's stare, but resentment lingered. Tormund Giantsbane scratched his beard. You always did have a way with words, Tormund Giantsbane said. His grin returned, but his eyes were measuring. So you're keeping it, feeding it, training it. What happens when it's big enough to eat a goat in one bite? Or a man? Jon Snow thought of Samwell Tarly flinching away from tiny teeth. He thought of the hatchling nipping blood. He kept his face still. Then I will make sure it eats what I tell it to eat, Jon Snow said. A ripple of laughter ran through the free folk. Not cruel, but doubtful. The free folk did not trust control. They trusted strength. Tormund Giantsbane's voice lowered, suddenly less playful. Some of my people will follow it, Tormund Giantsbane said. You know that. They'll see it as a sign. They'll start praying to it. They'll start thinking the fire beast means the gods chose them. Jon Snow's stomach tightened. That was what he feared. Not only Watch brothers plotting, but wildlings turning into a mob with a new idol. Then you will stop them, Jon Snow said. Tormund Giantsbane barked a laugh. Stop them, Tormund Giantsbane echoed. You want me to stop wildlings from being wild? I can try, but when folk get scared, they cling to whatever shines. Jon Snow's gaze flicked to the wall, vast and white. What shone now was a small pale dragon hidden in its belly, a warm secret pressed against ancient ice. He looked back at Tormund Giantsbane. Keep your people in line, Jon Snow said, or I will. Tormund Giantsbane's grin returned, but it did not reach his eyes. I'll do what I can, Tormund Giantsbane said. And if your little lizard eats Bowen Marsh, I'll call it justice. Bowen Marsh made a strangled sound. Iron Emmett's mouth twitched. Jon Snow did not smile. Disperse, Jon Snow ordered, voice carrying. All of you, back to your work. Men and wildlings shifted, reluctant. Then Ghost stood, hackles lifting slightly, and the yard remembered what teeth meant. Slowly, the lines loosened. The free folk drifted back toward their fires. The Night's Watch brothers returned to posts, muttering. Tormund Giantsbane lingered a moment longer, close enough that Jon Snow could smell the man's sweat beneath furs. One more thing, Tormund Giantsbane said softly, so only Jon Snow could hear. Dragons don't like cages. Neither do wildlings. Don't forget what you are, Jon Snow. Jon Snow held his gaze. I haven't, Jon Snow said. Tormund Giantsbane clapped him hard on the shoulder, like a blow meant as affection, and strode away laughing. Jon Snow stood in the yard until the last murmurs faded. He felt Ghost brush his leg, a silent reminder. The wall loomed above them all, ancient and cold. Jon Snow wondered how long before the warmth hidden within it cracked more than ice. Melisandre did not confront Jon Snow in the yard with an audience. Melisandre did not like audiences unless she controlled them. She found him in a corridor beneath the king's tower, where stones sweated cold and red torches burned with uncanny steadiness. Jon Snow had been making rounds because the men were rattled, because rattled men made mistakes, and mistakes got throats torn out by dead hands. He had almost reached the stair when a rustle of silk brushed the air behind him. "Lord Commander," Melisandre said, voice smooth as warmed wine. Jon Snow stopped without turning immediately. He felt her before he saw her. A heat in the cold corridor. A presence like a brazier carried by a woman's body. When he turned, she stood in red, her hair dark and glossy, her eyes like embers banked behind lids. The ruby at her throat glimmered. Jon Snow had seen that ruby shine in the dark and thought of eyes watching from the forest. "You're walking alone," Melisandre observed. "I'm never alone," Jon Snow said, and his gaze flicked briefly to the shadows. Ghost was not with him at the moment. Ghost rarely walked these corridors. But Jon Snow had learned that even when Ghost was absent, the wall itself listened. And so did Melisandre. Melisandre's mouth curved. "So you've decided to keep it," Melisandre said. She did not say dragon. She did not need to. Jon Snow's jaw tightened. "It isn't yours," Jon Snow said. Melisandre took a slow step closer, the hem of her gown whispering over stone. "Nothing is mine," Melisandre said softly. "Everything belongs to the Lord of Light. He gives and takes." Jon Snow's hand drifted toward Longclaw out of habit. "He doesn't give without demanding blood," Jon Snow said. Melisandre's eyes gleamed with something like amusement. "Blood is always paid," Melisandre said, "whether you call it a price or a sacrifice." From a doorway further down the corridor, Queen Celis Florent appeared, face pale and pinched, eyes sharp with zeal. She did not speak. She watched as if Jon Snow were a sinner about to be weighed and found wanting. Jon Snow ignored the queen. "What do you want?" Jon Snow asked Melisandre. Melisandre's gaze slid over Jon Snow's chest as if she could see through cloth and bone to whatever burned beneath. Jon Snow felt suddenly exposed, as if the hatchling's warmth had left a mark on his skin that she could read. "I want to see it," Melisandre said simply. "No," Jon Snow said. Melisandre's smile did not falter. "You do not understand what you carry," Melisandre said. "It is not only a beast. It is a sign. The flames have shown it to me. A winged shadow in the snow. A stone that sweats. A sword of fire in a hand of ice." Jon Snow's stomach twisted. "Your flames show you many things," Jon Snow said. "They show you what you want. They showed you Stannis Baratheon as the chosen king." Queen Celis Florent drew a sharp breath like an insult. Her eyes flashed with piety and pain. Melisandre's face remained calm. "The flames do not lie," Melisandre said. "Men misread them." Jon Snow's voice hardened. "And you think you do not?" Jon Snow asked. Melisandre's eyes narrowed slightly, and for a heartbeat the corridor felt warmer, as if the torches leaned toward her. "I have walked through fire," Melisandre murmured. "I have seen what waits in the darkness. You have only begun." Jon Snow felt a flare of anger. "I have seen enough," Jon Snow said. "I have fought Wights. I have watched men die with their throats torn. I have stood on a wall built to hold back nightmares." Melisandre's gaze softened, and that softness was more dangerous than her heat. "Then you know," Melisandre said quietly, "you know the cold is coming, and steel will not stop it. Fire will." Jon Snow's mouth tightened. "Fire burns," Jon Snow said. "It burns the living as easily as the dead." Melisandre stepped close enough that Jon Snow could smell her. Smoke and spice and something sweet underneath, like rot masked by perfume. "Fire is cruel," Melisandre whispered, "but winter is crueler. Let me help you. Let me speak to it. Let me." "No," Jon Snow said again, sharper. Melisandre's eyes held his. "You fear I will take it," Melisandre said. Jon Snow did not deny it. Melisandre's voice became almost tender. "If you hide it in ice, you will weaken it," Melisandre said. "If you starve it of heat, you will make it small. And small flames die." Jon Snow's throat tightened. The hatchling had been warmer in the wormways lately. The ice there had begun to slick. He had pretended that did not matter. "I will decide what it needs," Jon Snow said. Melisandre's smile returned. Thin. You will decide, Melisandre echoed. You who have never seen a dragon before this week. You who do not even know the words that wake dragonfire. Jon Snow's pulse jumped. Words, Jon Snow said, suspicion sharpening. What words? Melisandre's eyes glittered. Words older than your wall, Melisandre said. Words of flame, of Valyria. Words that make beasts remember what they are. Jon Snow felt Samwell Tarly's book, felt Valyrian glyphs like claws on parchment. He forced his voice steady. And you know them, Jon Snow said. Melisandre lifted a hand slowly, palm up, as if offering something unseen. I know many words, Melisandre said. I know how to call fire from wood, and light from darkness. I know how to wake sleeping things. Jon Snow's stomach turned. He thought of Shireen Baratheon's small face. He thought of King's blood whispered like prayer. You know how to burn children, Jon Snow said flatly. Queen Celis Florence's breath hissed, offended and furious. Melisandre's eyes hardened, the warmth in them cooling into something sharp. Careful, Melisandre said softly. You speak of things you do not understand. I understand enough, Jon Snow said. For a moment they stood close, cold stone around them, red torchlight flickering. Melisandre's ruby pulsed faintly, as if answering something in the air. Then Melisandre smiled again, as if she had not been wounded. Very well, Melisandre said. Keep your secret, keep your beast. But know this, Jon Snow, fire does not like to be buried. It will find a way to rise. Jon Snow held her gaze. If it rises without my leave, Jon Snow said, I will put it down. Melisandre's smile widened slightly, as if that threat amused her. You will try, Melisandre said. She turned away, gown whispering. Queen Celis Florent lingered a heartbeat, eyes cold with judgment, then followed her, hands clasped as if in prayer. Jon Snow stood alone in the corridor, breath fogging. His hand had clenched on Longclaw's hilt without him noticing. He forced his fingers to relax. From deep within the wall, Jon Snow imagined he could feel a faint warmth, like a heartbeat answering his own. He wondered if Melisandre could feel it too, and if so, how long before her patience turned into hunger. The wormways became Jon Snow's second command post. By day he wore the Lord Commander's face, the mask of cold duty. By night he descended into the wall like a man going to confession, lantern in hand, cloak pulled tight, ghost silent beside him when the direwolf chose to follow. Samwell Tarly came when he could, though fear clung to him like damp wool. Sometimes Iron Emmett came too at Jon Snow's order, not because Jon Snow trusted the men less than Emmett, but because if something went wrong, Jon Snow wanted steel near. The hatchling grew, not in leaps the way men imagined in songs, but in subtle changes that accumulated like snowdrifts. Its wings unfolded further each day, membranes smoothing from crumpled wetness into something taut and strong. Its claws sharpened, its teeth lengthened, tiny needles becoming hooks. Its eyes stayed ember-dark, but the glow behind them seemed steadier, less frantic, as if the creature was learning itself. It ate with a hunger that frightened Jon Snow. Not only meat, though it devoured raw goat like a wolf, but warmth. It pressed itself against Jon Snow's chest when Jon Snow lifted it, as if Jon Snow were a hearth. It curled into furs and breathed, melting shallow hollows in ice beneath. It bit at the lantern flame once, snapping at it like a fish at bait, and Jon Snow yanked it back with a curse when its tongue sizzled. Don't, Jon Snow told it, as if it could understand the word. The hatchling blinked at him and made a sound like a grumble. Offended, Samwell Tarly watched with wide eyes. It listens, Samwell Tarly whispered one night, voice trembling with awe. It listens, Jon Snow agreed, and it does what it wants anyway. On the fourth night after the hatching, Samwell Tarly brought a book again, tucked beneath his cloak like contraband. I found words, Samwell Tarly said, breathless. Valyrian words. Jon Snow's stomach tightened, remembering Melisandre's knowing smile. Words won't tame it, Jon Snow said. No, Samwell Tarly said quickly. "But maybe they'll help you guide it." Jon Snow crouched beside the furs where the hatchling sprawled, belly round from eating. It lifted its head and blinked at him slowly. Steam curled from its nostrils. The air around it shimmered faintly, like heat above stones in summer. Samwell Tarly opened the book carefully, finger tracing a line of glyphs. "This one," Samwell Tarly whispered, "means fire, dragon fire." He swallowed. "Dracaries." The word sounded harsh in Samwell Tarly's mouth, foreign and sharp. The hatchling's head tilted, ears small ridges, twitching. His eyes narrowed, attentive. Jon Snow's pulse quickened. He looked at Samwell Tarly. "Say it again," Jon Snow said. Samwell Tarly did, voice barely audible. "Dracaries." The hatchling's throat bulged slightly. A low hum vibrated through its body, like the cave had hummed around the egg. It made a soft chirr, then settled again, as if uncertain. Jon Snow swallowed. He leaned closer. The hatchling's eyes locked on his face. Jon Snow could feel its heat on his skin, smell hot stone and meat. "Dracaries," Jon Snow said. The word felt wrong on his tongue, as if he had borrowed someone else's language. And yet, when he spoke it, something in his chest tightened, like a memory he did not know he had. The hatchling's body went rigid. Its wings twitched. His throat swelled. Jon Snow held his breath. A thin jet of flame shot from the hatchling's mouth, bright and clean. It struck the ice wall a foot away and hissed, melting a shallow groove. Steam erupted, fogging the lantern light. Samwell Tarly yelped, stumbling backward, nearly dropping the lantern. Oh gods!" Ghost flinched, lips pulling back. The direwolf growled deep in his chest, torn between fight and flight. Jon Snow's heart hammered. He stared at the melted groove in the ice. The flame had been small, controlled, as if the hatchling had aimed. The hatchling looked at Jon Snow, eyes bright with fierce satisfaction, like a child proud of a trick. Jon Snow's throat went dry. "Again," Jon Snow said, voice low. Samwell Tarly's eyes widened. "Jon, again," Jon Snow repeated, and this time there was command in it. The hatchling's head bobbed, almost like a nod. It seemed to taste the air, tongue flicking. Jon Snow pointed at a broken crate in the corner. Old wood, dry and splintered, left by builders decades ago. "Dracaries," Jon Snow said. Flame leapt again, longer this time, striking the crate. The wood caught instantly, fire crawling along it with greedy speed. The wormway chamber filled with light and smoke, strange in the wall's belly. Steam hissed as the heat met ice. Water began to drip faster from the ceiling. Samwell Tarly made a strangled sound of panic. "The wall, Jon, the wall." Jon Snow grabbed a fur and smothered the crate quickly before the fire could spread. Smoke stung his eyes. He coughed, then waved the smoke away. The hatchling watched, intrigued, not frightened. Its eyes followed the dying flames with hungry curiosity. Jon Snow stared at it. The word had worked. The creature had responded to his voice, not Samwell Tarly's. It had breathed when Jon Snow commanded, and it had aimed. A cold prickling ran along Jon Snow's spine. If Jon Snow could make it burn, could another make it burn too? Could Melisandre? Could Bowen Marsh if he learned the word? Could any man who knew the sound? Or was it Jon Snow himself that mattered? Samwell Tarly edged closer again, eyes shining. "It listens to you," Samwell Tarly whispered. Wonder and fear tangled in his voice. Jon, it's like it's yours." Jon Snow's mouth tightened. "Nothing is mine," Jon Snow said, the phrase tasting bitter after Melisandre. "Not even my life." The hatchling crawled closer, claws clicking softly. It pressed its head against Jon Snow's knee, seeking warmth, seeking touch. Jon Snow hesitated, then laid a hand on its neck. The scales were hot. Beneath them, muscle-esque. Lifted. The creature's heart beat fast, steady. Ghost watched from the shadows, eyes pale and wary. He did not growl now. He simply watched as if trying to understand what kind of pack this had become. Jon Snow closed his eyes for a heartbeat and felt heat under his palm. He thought of vows made in cold. He thought of fire answering him like a loyal hound. He thought of how easily a loyal hound became a weapon. When he opened his eyes, the hatchling's ember gaze met his, unblinking. "You are trouble," Jon Snow murmured. The hatchling chirred softly, as if pleased by any attention at all, and curled against him like it had always belonged there. Othel Yarwyck cornered Jon Snow in the afternoon with a builder's anger and a builder's fear. Both practical, both deadly. He did not come alone. 2 builders followed him, men with cracked hands and frost in their beards, carrying tools and lanterns. Their faces were tight, eyes darting as if the wall might fall on them at any moment. "This way," Othel Yarwyck said without preamble, and Jon Snow followed because when a builder spoke of the wall, it was not wise to ignore him. They led Jon Snow into a used passage at first, one of the broader tunnels where lifts ran, where men hauled barrels and stone. Then Othel Yarwyck took a turn into an older branch, narrower and colder, where torchlight looked swallowed by blue shadow. Water dripped from the ceiling here in a steady rhythm. Jon Snow frowned. Dripping happened in thaw, not in dead winter. The wall was meant to be dry, hard, unyielding. Othel Yarwyck stopped beside a section of ice wall that looked wrong. The surface was slick, almost glossy, as if melted and refrozen poorly. A shallow groove ran along it, like a scar. Beneath, the ice was clouded with trapped air bubbles, as if it had been disturbed. Othel Yarwyck jabbed a thick finger at it. "That?" Othel Yarwyck growled. Jon Snow stared. He recognized the groove. He recognized the shape of it. It was where the hatchling's flame had struck ice when Jon Snow had spoken the word. Jon Snow kept his face still. "A torch did this?" Jon Snow asked, forcing blandness. One builder spat. "No torch I've ever held," the builder muttered. "Torches lick. They don't cut like that." Othel Yarwyck's eyes bored into Jon Snow. "You've got fire where fire shouldn't be," Othel Yarwyck said. "And now my wall is sweating like a fat man in summer." The old tunnels were made in colder days. Spells sit in the ice. You start melting it from inside and you might not like what comes loose. Jon Snow felt his stomach tighten. "What comes loose?" Jon Snow asked. Othel Yarwyck's mouth twisted. "Who knows?" Othel Yarwyck said. "Old air, old cracks, old magic. There are places in the wall no builder touches. Not because we can't, but because the ice feels wrong. Like it remembers hands that weren't ours. You weaken that and you might open a door you can't close." Jon Snow stared at the dripping water. He imagined the wall melting from within, spells unraveling. He imagined the black gate, ancient and strange, opening to let the dead pour through. He imagined the others watching from the forest as warmth ate away the barrier meant to hold them. He thought of the hatchling curled in furs, innocent as any newborn beast, and yet carrying heat that could change the wall itself. Othel Yarwyck's voice was lower now, less anger, more warning. "You can't keep it in here," Othel Yarwyck said. Jon Snow's jaw clenched. "Where else?" Jon Snow asked. Othel Yarwyck shrugged one heavy shoulder. "Not my problem," Othel Yarwyck said, though his eyes said it was everyone's. "Put it in a tower. Put it in a pen outside. Put it in the Godswood if you've got to. But don't put it in my wall." Jon Snow exhaled slowly. The wormways had been secrecy, but secrecy was not worth the wall cracking. He nodded once. "I'll move it," Jon Snow said. Othel Yarwyck's eyes narrowed. "Move it where?" Othel Yarwyck demanded. Jon Snow hesitated, mind racing through options. The keeps along the wall. Most were empty, abandoned, fallen into ruin. The Nightfort sat dark and half-collapsed. A castle men whispered about with fear. Queen's Gate was smaller, empty. The Shadow Tower had men, but too far. Eastwatch had ships, too many eyes. The Nightfort, Jon Snow thought grimly. If a place could swallow secrets, it was the Nightfort. Men feared its cold halls, its wells and tunnels, its stories of rats and monsters. Perhaps that fear could be useful. An abandoned castle, Jon Snow said carefully. Othel Yarwick grunted. Good, Othel Yarwick said. Put your trouble in a ruin. Ruins are made for trouble. Jon Snow's mouth tightened, but he did not argue. He looked again at the dripping ceiling, at the puddle forming on the floor. Water on stone in the wall's belly felt like blood on a blade, an omen you could not ignore. He left the passage with the sound of dripping following him like a countdown. By the time he reached the yard again, he had decided. The hatchling would not live in the wall. Not if the wall itself was the realm's last shield. He would move it to the Nightfort. He wondered if that decision would save the wall or doom him. That night, while Jon Snow planned routes and guards and how to carry a dragon whelp across a courtyard without 100 eyes seeing, Bowen Marsh planned too. Jon Snow did not see Bowen Marsh's meeting. Jon Snow did not hear the words spoken beneath low beams in a storehouse that smelled of salt meat and damp wood. Jon Snow did not know that fear, once it took root, grew in the dark where command could not prune it. Bowen Marsh stood among barrels with Wick Whittlestick and Alfin Crowkiller and 3 other men whose names Jon Snow would have recognized if he had been there. Men who had eaten at his table. Men who had laughed once when Edison Tollett made death into a joke. Men who now looked at Bowen Marsh as if he were the only thing steady left. Septon Celador hovered near the door, sweating despite the cold, fingers worrying his 7-pointed star until the chain bit into skin. His lips moved in prayer, or perhaps in complaint. "This is wrong," Septon Celador muttered. "Dragons are abominations, monsters, the stranger's pets. Shut your mouth," Wick Whittlestick snapped, and Septon Celador flinched like a whipped dog. Bowen Marsh's face was pale in lantern light, his eyes bright with the fever of certainty. "He will not listen," Bowen Marsh said quietly. "We spoke. We warned. He looks at us like we're children, and he does what he wants." Alfin Crowkiller spat. "He brought wildlings through," Alfin Crowkiller growled. "He let them squat in our yards and eat our food. Now he brings dragons. What's next?" Others invited in for supper. A rough chuckle rose, bitter. Bowen Marsh's mouth tightened. "He thinks himself righteous," Bowen Marsh said. "He thinks because the dead are coming, the rules don't matter. But the Night's Watch has rules for a reason. Rules are what kept us alive when kings forgot we existed." Wick Whittlestick leaned forward. "What do you want, Bowen?" Wick Whittlestick asked bluntly. "You want to take it? You want to kill it? You want to kill him?" Septon Celador made a choking sound at that last word, as if murder itself had teeth. Bowen Marsh's jaw worked. He did not answer at once. Outside the storehouse, wind moaned against wood. Somewhere nearby, men laughed weakly in the hall, trying to pretend last night had not happened. Bowen Marsh's hands clenched at his sides. "I want the watch safe," Bowen Marsh said finally. "I want the wall safe. I want my brothers safe." His voice hardened. "Jon Snow is not safe." Alfin Crowkiller's eyes glittered. "He's going to move it," Alfin Crowkiller said. "I heard talk, builders complaining. He'll shift it somewhere. To the Nightfort," Wick Whittlestick guessed. "That ruin? Gods, he's mad." Bowen Marsh's gaze flicked to Septon Celador. "If it stays with him, he will use it," Bowen Marsh said. "And once men see a dragon under Jon Snow's hand, they will start calling him king whether he wants it or not. You know how men are. They kneel to strength." Septon Celador swallowed hard. "We have a king," Septon Celador whispered. "Stannis. Stannis is gone," Alfin Crowkiller snapped. "And even if he lived, he's not here. Jon Snow is here. Jon Snow has the beast." Bowen Marsh's voice dropped. "If we take it," Bowen Marsh said, "we can send it south, to someone who can keep it. Someone with," he hesitated, "with rightful claim, with power to use it properly." Wick Whittlestick barked a laugh. "Rightful claim," Wick Whittlestick said. "That's a pretty word for selling our trouble to someone else." Septon Celador's eyes darted. "The Queen," Septon Celador whispered. "Queen Celis Florent. She would She would keep it for her husband. Elfin Crowkiller sneered. She'd pray it into a stew, Elfin Crowkiller said. Bowen Marsh's gaze narrowed. Melisandre, Bowen Marsh said softly. The word tasted like a curse. She wants it. She's been watching. If she gets it, she will burn whoever she pleases to feed her fires. Septon Celador crossed himself frantically. She is a demon, Septon Celador hissed. Wick Whittlestick leaned closer, voice rough. So what, Bowen? Wick Whittlestick asked again. What do we do? Bowen Marsh's eyes held on the lantern flame, as if he wanted to crush it. We act before he roots it deeper, Bowen Marsh said. Before it grows. Before he's wrapped the watch around his will so tight we can't breathe. Elfin Crowkiller's hand drifted to his dagger. We can kill a hatchling, Elfin Crowkiller said. Easy. One knife. Septon Celador gasped. Murdering a dragon, Septon Celador whispered, horrified and thrilled. The gods! Wick Whittlestick shook his head. Kill it and Jon Snow will hang you, Wick Whittlestick said. Or the Wildlings will tear you apart. Or Melisandre will burn you. Better to take it. Bowen Marsh's mouth tightened. Take it? Bowen Marsh echoed, as if the word made his throat ache. Yes, take it, before it takes us. They spoke in low voices then, making plans that felt like duty in their mouths and treason in their hands. They spoke of keys and guards and tunnels. They spoke of catching Jon Snow alone. They spoke of how a beast could be moved if it was wrapped, drugged, chained. They spoke of sending ravens to men who would pay for it, or to lords who would praise them for saving the watch from madness. They did not speak of what would happen if the hatchling breathed fire when frightened. They did not speak of what would happen if Jon Snow found out. Fear did not like to speak of consequences. Fear only liked to speak of action. By the time the lantern burned low, Bowen Marsh's face looked carved from the same cold stone as the wall. He left the storehouse with his cloak pulled tight and his plan held tighter, and he told himself he was saving the night's watch. In the dark, that was what every traitor told himself. Jon Snow wrote ravens the way a man laid kindling, carefully, knowing any spark could become wildfire. Samwell Tarly sat beside him with sealing wax and trembling hands. Maester Aemon listened from his chair, cane across his knees, head tilted as if the scratch of quill on parchment carried more truth than words spoken aloud. Ghost lay near the hearth, watchful. The direwolf's presence steadied Jon Snow more than any prayer. Jon Snow dipped the quill and began with Eastwatch, because Eastwatch saw the sea and heard the world's rumors first. Cotter Pike needed warning, and Cotter Pike needed orders. He wrote of an incident in the yard, dead rising, burned. He wrote of a creature found beyond the wall, small, under control, to be kept within the watch's authority. He did not write dragon at first. He stared at the blank space where that word would go and felt sweat cold on his spine. Samwell Tarly whispered, "If you don't say it, they'll imagine worse." Jon Snow's jaw clenched. He wrote it then. Dragon. The ink looked too black, too final. He wrote to the Shadow Tower as well, short and sharp. "Keep your men silent. No boasting. No drunken tales." Any brother spreading rumor would be punished. The wall could not afford panic. He considered writing to Winterfell and paused so long that Samwell Tarly shifted uneasily. Jon Snow's mind flicked through faces, Stark faces. The thought of sending a raven with the word dragon to any Stark felt like tossing a torch into a hayloft. And yet, if the North heard from someone else first, the raven would return with knives in its wake. He wrote anyway, careful, formal, to Winterfell, to whoever held it now. He did not name a lord or lady, only addressed it to the seat itself because seats outlived names. He wrote to Old Town too, to the Citadel, because maesters hoarded knowledge like dragons hoarded gold. If anyone could tell him what an egg had been doing in ice beyond the wall, it was men who had spent lifetimes reading dead words. Jon Snow hated asking Old Town for anything, but hate did not matter. Only survival did. When he finished, his fingers ached. He flexed them, ink staining his skin like a mark of guilt. Samwell Tarly held out the wax.
Seal, Samwell Tarly whispered.
Jon Snow pressed the direwolf seal hard into the red wax until it cooled. The sight of the direwolf made something twist in him, familiar and painful. He wondered what Ned Stark would say if he saw Jon Snow now, writing ravens about dragons and threats and keeping secrets from brothers. Maester Aemon's voice came quietly. "You cannot hold back the tide with words," Maester Aemon said, "but you can choose where you stand when it hits." Jon Snow nodded without looking up. "If lords come," Jon Snow said, "I want them to know this is the Watch's, not mine." Maester Aemon's blind eyes turned toward him. "Men will hear what they want," Maester Aemon said gently. Samwell Tarly swallowed. "What if Daenerys Targaryen hears?" Samwell Tarly whispered. "If she truly has dragons, she might come." Jon Snow's pulse jumped. The thought of another dragon lord, another claimant, another war, made his stomach knot. "If she hears, she hears," Jon Snow said. "I don't write to queens across the sea." Samwell Tarly's voice trembled. "But dragons call to each other. What if it's like a beacon?" Jon Snow finished, because the thought had already stabbed him in the haunted forest when Wights watched from trees. He looked at the raven cage. The birds shifted, black eyes bright. Ravens carried words. Dragons carried fire. Both could change the world. Jon Snow stood and opened the cage door. A raven flapped wildly, eager for sky. He tied the first message to its leg, fingers careful, and whispered, "Fly." The raven launched into the cold, disappearing into gray. Another followed. Another. Each bird was a piece of his secret set loose, each one a gamble. When the last raven flew, Jon Snow stood in the quiet solar, feeling the emptiness after action. His words were gone now, traveling south on black wings. He could not call them back. Samwell Tarly's voice was small. Do you think they'll believe you?" Jon Snow stared at the wax-sealed stubs left behind. "I think they'll believe whatever makes them most afraid," Jon Snow said. Maester Aemon's hand tightened on his cane. "Then you must make them more afraid of the dead than of you," Maester Aemon said. Jon Snow exhaled slowly. That was the heart of it. Not proving he was not a king, not proving the dragon was not a crown, proving that winter itself was the true enemy. Outside, wind moaned against the wall. Somewhere within the Nightfort's ruined halls, rats scurried in darkness, unaware that a new kind of beast was coming. Jon Snow turned from the desk and began to plan how to move fire through snow without letting it burn everything it touched. Twilight painted the world in bruised colors: purple sky, gray snow, black trees. Jon Snow stood on the wall because sometimes you had to look at the enemy to remember why you were doing what you were doing. Samwell Tarly stood beside him with a spyglass, hands trembling, breath steaming. Ghost prowled along the parapet, nose to the wind, body tense. The hatchling was wrapped in furs against Jon Snow's chest, hidden beneath his cloak like a stolen hearth. Jon Snow did not want the men below to see it again today. The yard was fragile enough without another round of awe and fear. But Jon Snow needed to know if the dead had noticed. He felt it before Samwell Tarly did. The hatchling stirred, pressing its head against Jon Snow's throat. His breath warmed his skin. It made a low, uneasy sound. Not a chirr of hunger, but something sharper. A warning. Jon Snow's gaze fixed on the north. Beyond the wall, the haunted forest stretched like a dark stain. Snow lay thick on branches. The world looked still, but Jon Snow knew better now. Stillness beyond the wall was never empty. Samwell Tarly lifted the spyglass, squinting. "I can't see," Samwell Tarly began, then froze. Jon Snow's stomach tightened. "What?" Jon Snow asked. Samwell Tarly swallowed hard. "Movement," Samwell Tarly whispered. "At the tree line. Lots of it." Jon Snow took the spyglass and pressed it to his eye. At first he saw only shadows. Then his vision sharpened, and he saw them. Specks moving in unnatural patterns, not like deer or wolves. Too many, too steady. A line of pale shapes between trees, clustered as if the forest had grown teeth. Wights, dozens, maybe more, moving toward the wall not in a wild rush but in patient gathering, like soldiers forming ranks. They stopped at the edge of the forest where snow opened into a wide white field and stood there, still. Jon Snow's throat went dry. Wights did not organize themselves. They were hands. The mind behind them chose where to gather. The hatchling hissed softly beneath Jon Snow's cloak. Jon Snow felt its body tense, claws digging into fur. Heat pulsed. "They're waiting," Samwell Tarly whispered, voice breaking. "Why are they waiting?" Jon Snow lowered the spyglass. "Because they know we're here," Jon Snow said. "Because they know we have fire." Samwell Tarly's eyes were wide and wet. Can they feel it?" Samwell Tarly asked. "The dragon." Jon Snow stared at the dark line of forest. He remembered the Wights watching in the haunted forest when he carried the egg. He remembered the pale shimmer in the storm. He did not know if the others could smell fire the way wolves smelled blood, but he knew they reacted. "Yes," Jon Snow said quietly. "I think they can." The hatchling's throat vibrated with a low hum, as if answering the cold attention beyond the trees. Jon Snow felt its heat surge. A faint glow appeared beneath the fur wrap, dim but real. "Don't," Jon Snow murmured, tightening his hold. "Not now." The hatchling wriggled, eager. And Jon Snow realized with a jolt that the creature was not afraid. It was angry. It wanted to burn what it sensed. Ghost stopped, ears pricked, staring north. His lips pulled back slightly, a silent snarl. The direwolf could not see what Jon Snow saw through the spyglass, but Ghost's senses reached further than eyes. Ghost smelled death. Ghost smelled cold magic. Ghost knew the enemy. Jon Snow's fingers tightened on the spyglass until his knuckles ached. The wall spells had kept the dead from crossing easily, but spells did not stop them from gathering. And if the others wanted the dragon, they might not need to cross. They might only need to wait until men cracked. Samwell Tarly's voice trembled. "If they attack, they will," Jon Snow said. "Not tonight, perhaps, but they will." Samwell Tarly swallowed. "Then the dragon." Jon Snow looked down at the furs pressed to his chest. Warmth seeped through. The hatchling's heart beat fast, steady. Jon Snow imagined it grown larger, flame stronger. A weapon, yes, a weapon that could also become a beacon. "We move it," Jon Snow said, decision settling like stone. "Tonight, to the Nightfort, before they test the wall again." Samwell Tarly's mouth opened. "Tonight," Samwell Tarly whispered. "But before my brothers decide to do it for me," Jon Snow said quietly. Samwell Tarly went pale. "You think?" Jon Snow did not answer because speaking the fear aloud gave it shape. He kept his eyes on the forest line where Wights waited like dark prayer. The hatchling shifted again, pressing its head against Jon Snow's throat as if claiming him. His heat warmed his skin. Jon Snow felt suddenly that the creature was not only reacting to the dead. It was reacting to him, to his tension, to his anger. It answered his blood like a mirror. Jon Snow lowered the cloak slightly and looked at the hatchling's face. Ember eyes stared back, unblinking. The creature made a soft sound, almost questioning. Jon Snow's voice came out low. "Soon," Jon Snow told it. "Not here, but soon." The hatchling's throat glow dimmed, reluctantly. It settled, though its body remained taut with anticipation. Ghost returned to Jon Snow's side and leaned briefly against his leg, a silent anchor. Jon Snow lifted his gaze to the north once more. The Wights stood still. They did not wave. They did not taunt. They simply waited, and that waiting felt like a promise. Jon Snow turned away from the parapet and began the descent from the wall with fire hidden under his cloak and cold gathering beyond the trees. The Nightfort smelled like old fear. Even before Jon Snow stepped through its broken gate, he felt the difference. Castle Black was worn and cold, but it was alive. Men shouted, ravens croaked, fires smoked. The Nightfort was a corpse of stone, vast and hollow, its towers broken like teeth, its courtyards buried in snow and silence. Legends clung to it like cobwebs. Rat cook, haunted wells, children vanished into darkness. Men said the Nightfort remembered every cruelty ever done within its walls and waited patiently to do more. Jon Snow did not believe in haunted castles. He believed in men. Men did enough haunting on their own. He brought only who he trusted. Iron Emmett came, grim and ready. Edison Tollet came because Jon Snow ordered him and because Edison Tollet's misery fit the Nightfort like a cloak. Samwell Tarly came because the hatchling had already snapped at his fingers and because Samwell Tarly was the only one who read words that could make Dragonfire obey. Ghost came too, silent as drifting snow, his pale body almost disappearing in the Nightfort's white-shadowed yard. Jon Snow carried the hatchling beneath his cloak, wrapped in furs, its heat pressed against his ribs. The creature squirmed occasionally, impatient with confinement. Jon Snow kept a hand on it, feeling the steady pulse beneath scales. They moved through the cold night like thieves. Jon Snow had chosen a path that avoided the main yard at Castle Black, slipping out through a lesser gate with only a handful of guards who owed him loyalty. Even so, Jon Snow had felt eyes on him. The wall had too many cracks to hide something this strange. The Nightfort's main hall yawned before them, its doors half collapsed, hanging like broken jaws. Jon Snow pushed inside with Longclaw drawn, torchlight flickering over stone that had not seen flame in years. Dust rose in the air, smelling of rot and old dry things. Snow had blown in through shattered windows and piled in corners like bones. Edison Tollet's voice was a whisper, half awed. "I always hoped to die here," Edison Tollet said. "It's nice to see my dreams come true early." Iron Emmett grunted. "Quiet," Iron Emmett said. Samwell Tarly held his lantern up, light shaking. It's bigger than I imagined," Samwell Tarly whispered, looking around as if the darkness might bite. "So many rooms, so many places to hide something." Jon Snow nodded. That was the point. The Nightfort could swallow a dragon whelp, at least for a time. They chose a chamber off the hall where the roof still held, where stone walls were thick and the only window was narrow and high. An old storage room, perhaps once filled with grain and ale. Now it held only dust and silence. Jon Snow knelt and unwrapped the furs. The hatchling tumbled out onto stone, claws clicking, wings flaring slightly as it tasted open air. It lifted its head and sniffed, nostrils steaming. Its ember eyes took in the chamber, the torchlight, the shadows. It made a sound, low, curious, not afraid. It crawled forward, then paused, staring at a pile of rubble in the corner as if it heard something there. Its throat vibrated faintly. Ghost's ears pricked. The direwolf's head turned in the same direction. Jon Snow frowned. "What is it?" Jon Snow murmured, though he knew neither beast would answer in words. Edison Tollet shifted uneasily, spear tightening in his hands. "If a rat leaps out, I'm leaving," Edison Tollet whispered. "I can face dead men. I draw the line at rats in haunted castles." Iron Emmett moved to the door, positioning himself like a locked bar. "No one comes in," Iron Emmett said quietly, and it sounded like a promise. Samwell Tarly set the meat bundle down, hands trembling. The hatchling's attention snapped to it instantly. It lunged with sudden speed, teeth sinking into raw flesh. It tore and swallowed with fierce hunger, tail lashing. Jon Snow watched, jaw tight. This was his life now, feeding a dragon in a haunted ruin while the dead gathered at the forest line. A faint scrape sounded somewhere beyond the chamber, subtle beneath the torch crackle. Iron Emmett's head snapped up. Edison Tollet stiffened. Ghost's body went tense, lips pulling back in a silent snarl. Jon Snow's hand went to Longclaw's hilt. "Someone's here," Iron Emmett murmured. Jon Snow listened. The Nightfort was full of creaks, whined through broken stone, snow sliding, old beams shifting. But this sound had intent. It had rhythm. A footstep held and released. Ghost moved toward the door, silent, then stopped, head cocked. The hatchling paused mid-chew. His head lifted, meat dangling from teeth. His eyes narrowed. His throat bulged slightly. Jon Snow felt heat surge in the air. "Stay," Jon Snow whispered to the hatchling, tightening his hold on the creature only with his voice. The hatchling's wings twitched. It did not go back to eating. Another scrape, closer now, and a shadow passed briefly across the crack beneath the door. Iron Emmet's spear lowered. "Lord Commander," Iron Emmet murmured. "Give the word." Jon Snow's mind raced. If Bowen Marsh's men had followed, if someone meant to take the hatchling here, it would be now, quiet, in ruins, away from other brothers' eyes. Jon Snow had moved his secret, and perhaps he had led thieves straight to it. He lifted Longclaw, Valyrian steel drinking torchlight. "Open," Jon Snow said softly to Iron Emmet. "Slow." Iron Emmet shifted, muscles tight, then pulled the door open a handspan. Cold air gusted in, carrying dust. A face appeared in the gap. Wick Whittlestick, eyes bright and hard. Behind him, movement, another cloak, another man. Wick Whittlestick's gaze flicked past Iron Emmet into the chamber, and for a heartbeat Jon Snow saw hunger there, sharp as a knife. Jon Snow's blood turned to ice. "Close it," Jon Snow snapped. Too late. Wick Whittlestick shoved forward, shoulder slamming the door wider. His hand darted inside, reaching not for Ron Emmet, but for something in the room. Something warm, something priceless. The hatchling hissed. Its throat swelled, ember eyes blazing. Jon Snow felt the heat surge like a wave. "Dracarys," Jon Snow began, not meaning to, not wanting to burn anyone inside this ruin. But the word rose in him like instinct, like a spark leaping to tinder. The hatchling did not wait for the command. Flame burst from its mouth, bright and sudden, filling the doorway with roaring light. Wick Whittlestick screamed. The Nightfort stone drank the sound, and the fire painted shadows on ruined walls like dancing demons. Jon Snow lunged forward through heat and smoke, Longclaw raised, and the chapter of secrecy ended the way all secrets ended on the wall, on the edge of a blade, with fire in the dark and brothers turning into enemies.